Wealth builds on itself. If you already have money, it's easier to make more. You can invest it. You can wait and watch it grow. You can use it to start a business or buy property. You can even sit on it while others work for you. If you don't have money, though, things are different. You work harder for less return. You have fewer choices. You face more risks. Most people believe that if you work hard, you'll move up. That's the idea behind the American dream. It sounds fair. It sounds true, but it doesn't match the data. Economic mobility, the ability to move from one income level to another, is not as strong as many think. Where you start often shapes where you end up. If you're born rich, you're likely to stay rich. If you're born poor, it's hard to climb out. Not impossible, just unlikely. Imagine two kids. One grows up in a wealthy suburb. Her parents own a home and they went to college. She has a quiet place to study, access to tutors, and gets into a good school. She doesn't worry about food or rent. She takes unpaid internships that build her resume. She can take risks because there's a safety net under her. The other kid lives in a low-income neighborhood. His school is underfunded. He works part-time to help his family. He shares a room with siblings and studies at the kitchen table. He gets into some college, maybe not a top one. He takes out loans. He skips unpaid internships because he can't afford them. He can't afford mistakes. By the time these kids are 25, their lives already look very different. And that gap often grows wider. Now think about investing. A person with $100,000 can put that money into stocks, real estate, or a business. Even a modest return, say 5% a year, brings in $5,000 without lifting a finger. Over time, with compounding, the returns grow. That person also has access to financial advice, better rates, and tax breaks. But if you live paycheck to paycheck, you don't have $100,000. You may not have $1,000. You may carry credit card debt or loans with high interest. Instead of earning from your money, you pay to borrow. Compounding works against you. Wealth also passes down through families. This isn't just about inheritances. Rich parents help pay for college, cover rent, and even buy homes for their kids. They provide soft landings if something goes wrong. Poor parents want to help too, but often they can't. In fact, kids from poor families often send money back home. Some people say, "Well, I know someone who made it." And yes, that happens, but it's rare. That person is the exception, not the rule. The numbers show that economic class is sticky. Most people stay new where they started. The system doesn't make it easy to rise. Look at housing. If you own a home in a good area, the value grows over time. You build equity. You can borrow against it or sell it later. But getting into the housing market is hard if you don't already have money. Prices rise faster than wages. Rent takes a bigger and bigger bite. And even if you do buy, one job loss or medical bill can put everything at risk. Then there's education. A college degree can boost income, but not always. Tuition has climbed and debt loads have followed. Meanwhile, wages have stayed flat in many jobs. Some people graduate with degrees that don't lead to good pay. Others don't graduate at all. Technology has widened the gap too. People with capital invest in companies or build tools that scale. They can reach millions with a product or service. Workers, by contrast, trade time for money. They can't scale in the same way. The returns to labor have shrunk. The returns to capital have grown. Tax policy plays a role. Many tax breaks favor the rich. Capital gains are taxed less than wages. Inheritances above certain levels can be structured to avoid taxes. Large donors influence politics in ways that protect their wealth. That's not illegal. It's built into the system. Even the way people network matters. Wealthy people know other wealthy people. They share advice, job leads, and business deals. They don't need to apply through a job portal. They pick up the phone. For someone without those connections, the path is longer and steeper. Add all this up, and the picture is clear. Wealth creates more wealth. It protects against loss. It opens doors. Without it, every step takes more effort. Every mistake costs more. The system favors those who already have an edge. People want to believe in fairness. They want to believe that hard work pays off. And it can, but it's not guaranteed. Starting position matters. Circumstance matters. And in today's world, the ladder up is missing a lot of rungs. Poverty is not just the result of bad luck or poor choices. It is often shaped by the systems and laws that people in power create and maintain. These systems don't always help the poor. In many cases, they protect the wealthy and keep low-income people from moving up. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens through policy decisions that could have gone another way. Start with wages. The federal minimum wage has not kept up with inflation. Prices for housing, food, and transportation rise, but wages stay flat. Someone working full-time at minimum wage cannot afford a one-bedroom apartment in most parts of the country. Lawmakers could raise the wage, but many choose not to. Business groups argue that higher wages will hurt profits or lead to fewer jobs. The result is a system where work doesn't always lead to stability. Now look at taxes. Many low-income workers pay a large share of their income in payroll taxes, sales taxes, and other fees. These taxes are taken out no matter how little someone earns. Meanwhile, wealthy individuals and corporations often find ways to pay less. They use loopholes, tax shelters, and deductions that aren't available to regular workers. Some companies earn billions and pay nothing in federal taxes. That's not illegal. It's how the law is written. And the people who write the laws often take donations from those same companies. Housing policy also plays a major role. In many cities, zoning laws make it hard to build affordable housing. These rules often come from wealthy neighborhoods that don't want apartments or duplexes nearby. They say it's about preserving character, but it ends up keeping poor people out. When housing supply stays low, prices go up. People who rent spend a larger share of their income on shelter, leaving less for food, transport, or savings. Welfare systems can be a trap. Many benefits come with strict rules and cutoffs. If someone starts to earn a little more, they may lose their benefits all at once. That's called the benefits cliff. Imagine a parent who gets help with food and childcare. They get a small raise at work, and suddenly that support disappears. Their total income goes down, even though their paycheck went up. That creates a system where taking small steps forward can lead to big steps back. Access to credit is another issue. Wealthy people borrow at low interest. They use credit to grow their wealth, to buy homes, invest, or start businesses. Poor people often pay high interest or rely on payday loans, which can trap them in cycles of debt. They borrow to survive, not to grow. The same financial system treats them differently based on what they already have. Schools are not funded equally. In many areas, school budgets depend on local property taxes. That means rich neighborhoods get better schools, newer buildings, more teachers, better materials. Poor neighborhoods get less. Kids from those areas start behind and stay behind. It's not because they work less. It's because the system gives them fewer tools to succeed. Healthcare also divides along income lines. If you don't have good insurance, you may skip care. A small health problem can become serious. A medical bill can wreck your budget. Even with public programs, access is uneven. Clinics are far apart. Appointments are hard to get. The stress of dealing with illness while poor makes everything else harder. Meanwhile, the wealthy get preventive care, early treatment, and private services. The justice system adds more pressure. Poor people are more likely to be arrested, fined, or jailed. If they can't pay bail, they wait in jail before trial. If they can't afford a lawyer, they may take a plea deal, even if they're innocent. Fines and court fees pile up. Miss one payment and you face more penalties. A traffic ticket for someone with money is a nuisance. For someone without, it's a crisis. Political power shapes all of this. Wealthy people and large companies donate to campaigns. They pay lobbyists to push for favorable laws. They help write rules that benefit them. Poor people don't have that kind of influence. They often face barriers to voting. Strict ID laws, fewer polling places, purged voter rolls. The system listens to those who fund it. Those without money are often left out. These systems don't just keep people poor. They protect the advantages of those at the top. That's not a side effect, that's the design. Policies are passed with full knowledge of who gains and who loses. When lawmakers cut public services, weaken labor laws, or reduce taxes on the rich, they know the impact. Poor communities pay the price. This isn't only about personal choices or effort. People can work full-time and still fall behind. They can follow the rules and still lose their housing, go into debt, or get stuck in a low-wage job. The system is not neutral. It's tilted, and it stays that way because powerful interests benefit from keeping it that way. When a person breaks the law, they face jail, fines, or both. But when a large company breaks the law, the outcome is usually different. Instead of prison, they pay a fine. Instead of being shut down, they keep operating. In many cases, no one at the top is held personally responsible. The company admits no guilt and business goes on. This pattern is not rare. It's part of how the legal system treats corporations. Corporations are treated as legal people in some ways. They can own property, sign contracts, and be sued, but they cannot go to prison. When a company commits a crime like fraud, environmental damage, or price fixing, it's often handled with a settlement. The company pays a fine and agrees to change behavior. Sometimes these fines sound large in headlines, but they are small compared to the company's profits. For many firms, it's a cost of doing business. Take the banking industry. During the 2008 financial crisis, large banks sold toxic financial products and misled investors. These actions played a key role in the collapse of the global economy. Millions of people lost their homes and jobs. The banks paid billions in fines, but no top executive went to jail. Many kept their bonuses. The message was clear. If a company is big enough, the rules work differently. In the pharmaceutical world, companies have promoted drugs for uses not approved by regulators. This has led to addiction, injury, and death. A well-known example is the opioid crisis. Some drug makers pushed powerful painkillers while hiding the risks. The result was a wave of overdose deaths. Firms paid large settlements, but few individuals faced serious charges. In some cases, executives made millions while communities faced the fallout. Environmental violations show the same pattern. When an oil company spills millions of gallons into the ocean, or a chemical firm pollutes a water supply, the damage can last for decades. Companies usually settle with regulators. They agree to clean up, pay some compensation, and move forward. But the harm to local residents, wildlife, and ecosystems doesn't go away. And rarely does a decision-maker face personal legal risk. This difference in treatment exists partly because of how laws are enforced. Prosecutors often hesitate to bring criminal charges against companies, especially large ones. They worry about job losses and market shocks. If a major bank or firm is convicted, it could lose licenses or go out of business. That could hurt employees, shareholders, and customers. So instead of charges, there are deals, deferred prosecution agreements, non-prosecution agreements, or civil penalties. Companies have teams of lawyers who negotiate these outcomes. They know how to delay cases, limit exposure, and shape public messaging. Their goal is to protect the brand and the leadership. Most settlements don't require an admission of guilt. They come with statements like, "We neither admit nor deny the findings." That lets the company avoid lawsuits from customers or shareholders. The law also allows corporations to write off some penalties as business expenses. That means part of the cost can be deducted from taxes. A fine meant to punish becomes just another line item. in the end. The public pays for part of the damage caused. Campaign donations and lobbying make the problem worse. Large corporations give money to both political parties. They fund think tanks, sponsor events, and meet with lawmakers. This gives them access and influence. Laws and regulations are often shaped by their input. Agencies that should regulate them sometimes end up working closely with industry leaders, creating conflicts of interest. Even when laws are passed to protect the public, enforcement can be weak. Regulatory agencies often lack the staff, funding, or authority to take on powerful firms. Investigations take years. By the time a case ends, the damage is done. The people in charge may have moved on to other companies. Individual whistleblowers sometimes expose wrongdoing, but they take big risks. They may lose their jobs, face lawsuits, or struggle to find work again. Legal protections exist, but they are uneven. Companies can use their resources to fight back hard. The imbalance of power is real and hard to ignore. Everyday people see this. A man is arrested for shoplifting groceries. A company defrauds investors of millions and pays a fine. One ends up in court. The other issues a press release. This contrast shapes how people view fairness in the legal system. It creates a sense that rules are enforced based on status, not behavior. Corporations are not above the law in theory, but in practice, the gap in how they are treated is wide. Wealth and size offer protection. Responsibility gets diffused across departments and teams. When no one is named, no one is blamed. And without real consequences, the same violations can happen again. Governments often say they go to war to protect freedom, stop threats, or defend human rights. Those claims shape public opinion and build support. But behind the slogans, many wars are really about control of resources. Oil, minerals, land, and trade routes often drive the fighting. Ideology becomes the surface story. The deeper reason is access to what makes money or holds power. The war in Iraq is a clear example. In 2003, the US government said Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and links to terrorism. These claims turned out to be false. What Iraq did have was the second largest oil reserves in the world. After the invasion, foreign companies gained access to those fields. Before the war, Iraq's oil was controlled by the state. Afterward, it became part of the global market under new terms. The official reason was safety. The result was resource control. In the past, colonial wars were almost always about resources. European powers fought each other and local populations across Africa, Asia, and the Americas. They said they were spreading religion or civilization, but their real goal was gold, land, spices, rubber, and labor. Countries carved up the world to feed factories back home. When borders were drawn, they followed rivers, mines, and ports, not cultural or political lines. In the 20th century, World War I started with alliances and political tensions, but those tensions were rooted in economic competition. Countries wanted access to colonies and markets. The collapse of the Ottoman Empire opened a race for oil fields in the Middle East. British and French forces moved quickly to secure key zones. After the war, secret agreements divided the region along lines that favored oil supply, not local needs. World War II had strong ideological elements, especially the fight against fascism, but it also involved raw power and resources. Germany wanted land, coal, and steel. Japan invaded China and Southeast Asia for oil, rubber, and minerals. The US cut off Japan's access to oil and steel, pushing tensions higher. In many cases, control of resources decided where armies moved and which areas were fought over hardest. Today, the South China Sea is one of the most contested areas on Earth. China, Vietnam, the Philippines, and other countries all claim parts of it. At first glance, it's a fight over national pride and old maps. But under the sea lies oil and gas. The waters also carry 1/3 of global shipping. Whoever controls the area gains not just resources, but strategic and economic power. That's why countries are building artificial islands and expanding their navies. In Africa, many ongoing conflicts tie directly to minerals. The Democratic Republic of Congo has some of the richest deposits of cobalt, gold, and coltan, used in smartphones and electric cars. Armed groups fight for control of mines. Outside companies buy these materials through complex supply chains that hide their origin. The violence is blamed on ethnic differences, but the fighting often follows the path of valuable deposits. Afghanistan has been called the graveyard of empires, but it is also home to large deposits of lithium, copper, and rare earth elements. These are critical for military equipment and clean energy technology. During the US occupation, studies revealed the extent of this untapped wealth. The war was explained as a fight against terrorism, but long-term economic interest played a role, especially as global demand for these materials grew. Water is becoming a major reason for conflict. Rivers that cross borders are now flashpoints. Countries upstream build dams, affecting farming and drinking water downstream. In regions like the Middle East and North Africa, where water is scarce, this can lead to tension or even war. Officials may say they're defending sovereignty, but the heart of the fight is who gets the water. Land has always been a source of conflict. Countries want land that offers better farming, easier defense, or valuable resources. In modern times, this also includes routes for pipelines and cables. When Russia invaded parts of Ukraine, many saw it as a fight over influence. But Ukraine also has farmland, minerals, and access to the Black Sea, a major route for grain and fuel exports. Control over that land brings both power and revenue. Even civil wars often center on resources. In places like Sudan, factions fight over oil fields, grazing lands, and gold mines. In Venezuela, control of oil wealth is a key part of the political crisis. In Syria, groups seized oil wells to fund their operations. Outside powers entered the conflict, not only to support allies, but also to gain leverage over supply routes and future reconstruction contracts. Wars cost money, lives, and time. Leaders rarely enter them without expecting a return. Public messages focus on noble goals, but private plans often focus on what lies underground or along the borders. Follow the minerals, the oil, the water, and the land, and the reasons become clearer. The human stories are real. The suffering is real. But the engine behind many of these wars is built from profit, not principle. Every time you go online, your actions leave a trail. You click on a link, read an article, buy a product, or watch a video. These actions may feel private, but they are not. Behind the screen, companies record and store nearly everything you do. That data is then packaged, analyzed, and sold. This process happens quietly, but it shapes what you see, what you pay, and even what choices you're given. Most websites track your behavior using tools called cookies and scripts. These tools collect information about what pages you visit, how long you stay, where you move your mouse, and what you click. Some even track when you stop scrolling. Apps on your phone do the same, often pulling in location data, contact lists, and device details. You may have agreed to this when you accepted the terms of service, but most people don't read those terms, and even if they do, the language is often vague and long. Once your data is collected, it doesn't just stay with the company you interacted with. It's often shared with data brokers, companies that exist solely to buy and sell personal information. These brokers create detailed profiles. A single profile may include your age, income level, job, habits, favorite brands, health conditions, relationship status, and more. This data is grouped, scored, and sold to advertisers, insurance firms, and sometimes political groups. Say you search for back pain remedies. That data gets recorded. Maybe you also shop for ergonomic chairs and visit a few health blogs. Now you're flagged as someone with a potential medical issue. Companies selling pain relief products will start targeting you with ads. That might not bother you, but what if an insurance company buys that data and adjusts your rates based on what they think you might cost them? Your data also affects what prices you see. Online stores can show different prices to different people based on their location, device, or shopping habits. If a company thinks you're likely to buy no matter what, they may show you a higher price. That's called dynamic pricing. You don't always notice it, but it happens. Social media companies collect data at a massive scale. Every like, comment, and share teaches the algorithm more about you. It learns what holds your attention, what angers you, what makes you stay on the platform longer. That knowledge is used to show you content that keeps you engaged and ads that are more likely to work. Advertisers pay more for that level of precision. Even your offline life can feed into these systems. Stores use loyalty cards to track what you buy. That data is often tied to your email or phone number and then matched with your online activity. Your location can be tracked through your phone's GPS, Wi-Fi networks, or even Bluetooth signals from nearby devices. Advertisers can use this to know when you enter a store, how long you stay, and what you walk past. Data breakers often gather information from public records as well. Property records, court filings, voter rolls, and more all get pulled in. This information is not new, but when it's combined with your digital behavior, it becomes far more revealing. The resulting profile can be surprisingly personal, sometimes more detailed than what your close friends know about you. This system runs in the background of daily life. Most of the time, you don't notice it, but its effects are real. It can shape job offers, loan approvals, and housing ads. It can even shape political messages. Campaigns now use voter data to send targeted ads designed to push emotional buttons or reinforce specific beliefs. The messages you see may be different from those sent to your neighbor. Privacy policies often say your data is anonymized, but that word can be misleading. Even without your name or email, a large enough set of data points can identify you. Patterns in your behavior, what you search, where you go, what time you're online, can act like a fingerprint. Researchers have shown that with just a few data points, it's possible to re-identify most people in a dataset. Companies argue that this data helps them improve services. That may be true. It lets them personalize experiences, make recommendations, and detect fraud. But it also gives them power. Power to influence behavior, set prices, and control what you see. That power is rarely discussed in public. Most of the system is hidden behind code, contracts, and algorithms. You might think, I have nothing to hide, but privacy is not just about hiding. It's about control. It's about deciding who gets to know things about you and for what purpose. Right now, that control lies mostly with corporations. They decide what to collect, who to sell it to, and how long to keep it. You have few tools to see or change what they know. And once your data is out, it's almost impossible to pull it back. Most people are told their vote is their voice. They grow up believing that elections give them power and that democracy means everyone has an equal say. In theory, this sounds fair. In practice, money, lobbying, and media control often shape political outcomes long before anyone casts a ballot. The result is a system that looks democratic on the surface, but functions in a way that favors the wealthy and connected. Campaigns cost money, millions for local races, far more for national ones. That money usually comes from donors, not everyday voters. Large corporations, wealthy individuals, and political action committees give the most. In return, they often get access to candidates, influence over policy, and a stronger voice in government decisions. Elected officials rely on these donations to stay in office. That creates a relationship where the donor's priorities often come before the public's. Lobbying firms take this further. These firms work directly with lawmakers to shape bills, suggest wording, and push for favorable regulations. They often hire former politicians or staffers who already know how the system works. That means the people writing the laws are often the same ones who once enforced them. A company that spends millions on lobbying can push for tax breaks, block new rules, or slow down enforcement. Regular citizens do not have that kind of reach. Media plays a major role too. A small number of corporations own most major news outlets. These companies choose what stories to cover, how to frame them, and what voices to amplify. Political ads dominate airtime during election seasons. The candidates with the most money get the most exposure. That exposure shapes public opinion. It doesn't always reflect the best ideas. It often reflects the best-funded ideas. Algorithms on social media also influence what people see. Political content is ranked by engagement, not accuracy. That means the most emotional or divisive posts often spread the fastest. Misinformation travels quickly, while corrections barely reach the same audience. This warps public debate. It pushes people into echo chambers and away from thoughtful discussion. Gerrymandering is another tool that weakens the vote. This is when district lines are drawn to favor one party. The lines pack voters in a way that gives one side an edge, even if they win fewer total votes. The result is elections that are decided before they start. One party holds power not because they win more support, but because the map is rigged in their favor. Voter suppression adds to the problem. Some states make it harder to register, cut early voting, or require strict ID. These rules are often framed as security measures, but in practice, they tend to affect poor and minority voters the most. Fewer polling places in certain areas mean longer lines. Confusing rules lead to rejected ballots. All of this chips away at the idea of equal access. Even when people do vote, the policies they want don't always happen. Studies have shown that public opinion has little impact on lawmaking unless it aligns with the interests of the wealthy. When poor or middle-class people support a policy and rich people oppose it, the policy almost never passes. That raises the question, who is the system really working for? The courts can also limit what voters can do. Judges appointed for life can strike down laws passed by elected officials. That's part of the legal system, but it also means big decisions rest with people who never face a vote. Some courts have ruled that money is speech, allowing more spending in politics. Others have blocked efforts to limit gerrymandering or expand voting rights. These decisions shape the system in ways that last for decades. Corporate influence reaches beyond elections and policy. Companies fund think tanks, sponsor research, and donate to universities. These institutions help shape public opinion and expert advice. When policy debates happen, these voices carry weight. They appear on news shows, write op-eds, and speak at hearings. But their funding sources can shape what they say and what they leave out. Public frustration is growing. Many people feel like nothing changes no matter who they vote for. Promises are made and broken. Big donors still get meetings. The rest of the country waits in line. This leads to apathy or anger. Some people stop voting. Others lose faith in the system entirely. That weakens democracy even more, creating a loop where fewer people participate and more power shifts to those who already have it. The structure of elections also plays a role. In many areas, only two parties dominate. That limits the range of choices. Third parties struggle to get on the ballot, raise funds, or get media coverage. Voters may feel forced to choose the lesser evil instead of a candidate they truly support. That pressure to vote strategically rather than honestly erodes trust in the process. On paper, democracy means rule by the people. But the modern system often gives the loudest voice to those with the deepest pockets. Laws are passed, deals are made, and messages are shaped long before the voter enters the booth. The vote still matters, but far less than most are led to believe. No schools teach students to follow rules, meet deadlines, and repeat information. That might look like education, but it's often more about control than learning. Instead of teaching students to ask questions, schools often reward quiet behavior and correct answers. Instead of developing independent thought, they create patterns of obedience. The goal isn't always to help students think, it's to help them fit into a system. The school day is rigid. L's signal when to start and stop. Students sit in rows, speak only when called on, and follow set instructions. These routines mirror the workplace, especially in jobs that value discipline over creativity. It's no accident. The modern school system took shape during the Industrial Revolution. Factories needed workers who showed up on time, followed directions, and didn't question authority. Schools became part of that pipeline. Standardized tests play a large role in how students are taught. These tests focus on memorization and repetition. Teachers often have to teach to the test to keep their jobs or funding. That means sticking to formulas and avoiding subjects that don't fit the test. Students learn how to find the right answer, not how to challenge the question. Those who fall behind often get labeled as slow, even if they think in different or creative ways. A student who asks too many questions may be seen as disruptive. One who follows all directions but shows no real understanding may be praised. This creates a message: follow the system and you'll succeed. Step outside it and you're a problem. This system discourages risk. It rewards compliance. Over time, this shapes how students see themselves. They learn to wait for permission, not to take initiative. Homework reinforces this pattern. Students are expected to complete tasks alone, on time, and in a specific format. Success is measured by how closely they match the expected answer. Collaboration, exploration, or self-direction are often discouraged. Even subjects like art or writing are graded by rubrics that favor structure over originality. Instead of asking what students think, schools ask whether they followed the instructions. Discipline policies also reflect this focus on control. In many schools, especially those in low-income areas, rules are strict. Minor behavior issues can lead to suspension or worse. Students are taught that order matters more than expression. They learn that authority must not be questioned. This kind of discipline doesn't build respect, it builds fear. It prepares students to take orders, not to lead or think critically. Curriculum choices matter too. History is often taught from a narrow perspective. Students learn about events, but not the systems behind them. They may hear names and dates, but not the full story of who benefited and who suffered. They're rarely asked to examine power, bias, or inequality. Literature is often limited to voices that reflect dominant culture. Other stories, especially those that challenge the norm, get pushed to the margins. Civic education, where it exists, usually focuses on how government works in theory. It teaches students about voting, laws, and branches of power, but it rarely digs into how those systems are influenced by money, race, or class. It avoids uncomfortable truths. It gives students a version of democracy that feels clean and fair, even when the reality is more complex. The goal is to produce informed citizens, but only up to a point, just enough to participate, not enough to disrupt. Vocational training and job prep have become central goals of education. Schools are rated on how many graduates get jobs or go to college. That sounds useful, but it also narrows the purpose of learning. Education becomes a tool for productivity, not personal growth. Students are treated like future employees. Their value is measured by how well they fit into the market, not by how clearly they think or how deeply they understand the world. This model doesn't serve everyone equally. Students from wealthier backgrounds often attend schools that allow more freedom, creativity, and critical discussion. They are taught to lead. Students in poorer districts face more control, more testing, and more surveillance. They are taught to follow. The system doesn't just prepare students for the workforce, it helps assign them to different levels within it. Technology has added a new layer of control. Learning platforms track clicks, time spent on tasks, and test performance. Algorithms decide what content to show and when. This data is used to rank students and shape their learning path, but it also limits them. It puts students into boxes based on numbers, not on interest or insight. The system becomes even more rigid, even more focused on output. Students who resist this system often pay a price. They may be labeled as lazy, disobedient, or distracted, but in many cases, they're reacting to a system that doesn't value their way of thinking. They may be creative, curious, or skeptical, traits that should be encouraged, not punished. The problem isn't the student, it's the structure they're in. Schools could teach students to ask hard questions, to think deeply, to examine power, and to imagine new systems. But that's not the system we have. The one in place often trains obedience, not thought. It creates workers, not critics. And while it may keep order, it doesn't always build understanding. News is not neutral. Every outlet makes choices about what to cover, how to frame a story, and which voices to include. These choices are shaped by ownership, funding, audience, and ideology. Even when facts are correct, the way they're presented reflects a point of view. That doesn't mean all news is false. It means all news is filtered. A newspaper doesn't report every event. It selects a small number of stories each day. The front page might show a protest, a court case, or a new law. That choice sends a message about what matters. Another outlet might lead with something different. The same event can be framed as progress, danger, or controversy, depending on who's telling it. That frame shapes what people think the story means. Ownership matters. Most major news outlets are owned by large corporations. These companies have their own business interests, including advertising, partnerships, and political ties. An outlet owned by an oil company is less likely to highlight environmental damage caused by drilling. A network owned by a defense contractor may not question military spending as strongly. The newsroom may claim independence, but ownership sets limits. Advertising shapes coverage too. News outlets depend on ad revenue. If a major sponsor is tied to a story, the coverage may be softened or skipped entirely. A company that spends millions on ads has influence, even if no one gives direct orders. Editors know which stories could cause problems. Over time, that awareness becomes part of the job. It's not always about lying, it's about avoiding what could hurt the bottom line. Public media has different pressures. It may not rely on ads, but it still answers to funders, boards, or governments. When budgets are on the line, content can shift. Critical stories may be held back if they risk upsetting donors or political allies. Even nonprofit outlets can be shaped by the foundations that fund them. Grants often come with goals. That affects what gets covered and how. The audience also plays a role. Outlets know who reads or watches them. They track clicks, shares, and subscriptions. If a story angers the base, people might leave. That creates a feedback loop. News becomes tailored to keep the audience comfortable, even if that means avoiding certain facts. The result is polarization. One group hears one version of reality, and another hears a different one. Political leanings show up in tone, word choice, and framing. A protest might be described as a riot, a demonstration, or an uprising. A policy may be called reform, rollback, or attack. These words aren't neutral. They shape the reader's judgment. Two outlets covering the same event may offer opposite impressions, even if both report true details. The spin is in the presentation. Even the structure of stories shows bias. Which quote comes first? What gets highlighted in the headline? Who gets the last word? These choices guide how readers interpret the facts. Bias doesn't always mean distortion. Sometimes it's about emphasis. A statistic can look very different depending on the context around it. Breaking news is especially prone to error and bias. In fast-moving situations, outlets rush to be first. They rely on limited sources and speculation. Early reports often miss key facts or frame events in ways that later turn out to be wrong. But by the time corrections come, the first version has already shaped public opinion. Speed replaces depth and accuracy suffers. Cable news adds another layer. Pundits talk for hours each day. Much of that time is filled with commentary, not reporting. Viewers may not notice the difference. They hear confident voices giving opinions backed by selective facts. The format rewards strong takes, not careful analysis. Debate becomes entertainment. Facts get bent to fit the story. Social media spreads these patterns further. Clips and headlines are shared out of context. Algorithms promote content that gets reactions, likes, anger, or fear. Nuance doesn't trend. Outlets compete for attention, and attention rewards extremes. A balanced story may be ignored, while a loud one goes viral. Newsrooms are made up of people, reporters, editors, and producers bring their own views and experiences. That's natural, but it means complete neutrality is impossible. What matters is whether they acknowledge their perspective, check their sources, and correct their mistakes. Some outlets try, others push an agenda without saying so. Readers need to pay attention to sources, funding, and framing. One outlet alone doesn't tell the full story. It helps to read across the spectrum, to compare how different places report the same event. Bias shows in contrast. The goal is not to find a perfect source, but to understand how stories are shaped. No outlet is free from influence. Bias can't be removed, but it can be recognized. When people treat the news as pure truth, they give it more power than it deserves. When they see it as a product shaped by choices, they become more careful thinkers. The facts still matter, but how those facts are told matters just as much. Climate collapse is not a distant threat. It's already happening. The signs are clear: rising temperatures, stronger storms, longer droughts, and melting ice. These are not warnings, they are the effects. People around the world are living through them now. Crops are failing, rivers are drying, cities are flooding. The damage is real, and in many ways, it can't be undone. The atmosphere is warmer than at any point in recorded human history. Heat waves now last longer and reach higher temperatures. Some areas that used to see a few days of extreme heat each year now face weeks of it. These heat waves kill people, especially the elderly and those without air conditioning. They also weaken infrastructure. Roads crack, power grids fail, water sources shrink. Wildfires have grown worse. In many regions, fire seasons are now longer and more intense. Forests that once burned every few decades now burn every few years. These fires destroy homes, ecosystems, and air quality. Smoke spreads far beyond the flames, affecting millions. People with asthma or heart disease are especially at risk. The fires also release carbon stored in trees, adding more greenhouse gases to the atmosphere and making the problem worse. Sea levels are rising. This isn't a forecast, it's a measurement. Coastal cities are seeing more flooding, even on sunny days. Salt water seeps into freshwater supplies. Beaches erode. Storm surges reach farther inland. Some island nations face total loss. They are running out of options as seawater eats away at their land and makes it harder to grow food or stay healthy. Glaciers are melting at a rapid pace. In places like the Himalayas, Andes, and Alps, ice that took thousands of years to form is disappearing. These glaciers feed rivers that support billions of people. As they shrink, water becomes less reliable. Some rivers run dry for parts of the year. Others flood as meltwater comes too fast. Both extremes cause problems for farmers, cities, and energy systems. Droughts are hitting harder and lasting longer. In parts of Africa, the Middle East, and the Western United States, water is running out. Farms go dry, crops fail, livestock die, people are forced to leave their homes. In some cases, conflicts grow worse as groups compete for shrinking resources. Water scarcity is no longer rare, it's becoming a defining issue of our time. Oceans are changing too. Warmer water holds less oxygen and supports less life. Coral reefs are dying at alarming rates. These reefs are not just pretty, they support entire food chains. Without them, fish populations drop. Millions of people who rely on fish for food and income are affected. Acidification, caused by carbon absorption. also makes it harder for shellfish and other marine life to survive. These changes are not spread evenly. Poorer countries, which contribute the least to climate change, often suffer the most. They have fewer resources to adapt. Wealthy countries are not immune, but they can build seawalls, air-conditioned schools, and import food. Still, no one escapes entirely. Storms don't check passports. Heat doesn't stop at borders. Climate models once showed possible futures. Now those futures are here. Scientists warned about the effects of global warming decades ago. Many of those warnings were called alarmist at the time. Now they look understated. Even if emissions stopped today, many effects would still continue. Carbon dioxide stays in the atmosphere for hundreds of years. Ice takes time to melt. Ecosystems take time to collapse. That doesn't mean nothing can be done, but it does mean the window for preventing collapse has closed in many areas. The focus now shifts to reducing harm, not avoiding it entirely. Cities need to build for floods, not just prevent them. Farmers need to plan for shorter growing seasons and uncertain rainfall. Energy systems need to work in heat, drought, and storms. That takes planning, money, and political will. One major barrier is denial. Some people still think of climate change as a future risk or a scientific debate. It's neither. The science is settled, the damage is visible, and the delays have made the crisis deeper. Each year of inaction makes recovery harder. Some ecosystems will not return. Some coastlines will vanish. Some species are already gone. Another barrier is distraction. News cycles move fast. Climate stories compete with politics, sports, and daily life, but the climate doesn't wait. It moves forward, one heat wave, one flood, one storm at a time. By the time the damage becomes headline news, the real chance to act may be gone. That's why focus matters, not just in governments, but in how we talk, vote, and plan. Climate collapse is not something future generations will deal with on their own. It is happening now, shaping the present. Fires, floods, and droughts are no longer rare events. They are part of the new normal. The world has changed. The question now is how much worse it gets, and how prepared we are to face what's already here. Processed foods are not just made for taste or convenience. They are designed to make you keep eating. Large food companies use science, chemistry, and marketing to create products that trigger cravings, override fullness, and keep you coming back for more. These foods are made to hook you, not nourish you. When a company creates a new snack or frozen meal, they don't stop at flavor. They run tests to find the exact mix of sugar, salt, and fat that makes it hard to stop eating. This point is known as the bliss point. It's the level where your brain lights up with pleasure but doesn't register satisfaction. You feel rewarded but not full. You want just one more bite, and then another. Texture matters too. Crunchy chips, creamy cheese spreads, and fizzy drinks are all built for mouthfeel. Food engineers test how fast the food melts in your mouth, how loud it crunches, and how smooth it feels on your tongue. These features aren't just pleasant. They are crafted to keep your brain engaged and your hand reaching back into the bag. The goal is to bypass control and turn eating into a reflex. Some processed foods break down so quickly in your mouth that your brain doesn't register calories right away. This is called vanishing caloric density. You eat more before you feel full. Cheese puffs are a clear example. They dissolve almost instantly, so your body thinks you haven't eaten much. In reality, you've taken in more than you realize. The packaging and placement are part of the strategy. Foods with bright colors, bold fonts, and cartoon characters are designed to grab attention, especially from children. Placement at eye level in stores, near checkout counters, or in special bins encourages impulse buys. The more often you see the product, the more likely you are to buy it, especially if you've already tasted it and enjoyed the quick hit of flavor. Marketing adds another layer. Ads for processed foods don't talk about ingredients, they talk about feelings. They link the product to happiness, friendship, comfort, or nostalgia. A bag of chips is more than a snack. It's part of a football game, a party, or a road trip. These connections make the food harder to resist. You're not just craving the taste, you're craving the experience that comes with it. Food companies also fund studies to shape public opinion. Some research is designed to make processed foods seem healthier than they are. Labels like low-fat, natural, or made with whole grains can be misleading. A cereal with added fiber may still be packed with sugar. A snack labeled as low in fat may be high in salt. The goal is to make you feel better about your choice without changing what's in the bag. Serving sizes are often misleading. A small frozen meal may list low calories on the front, but the portion is tiny. A bottle of soda may show calories for 1 serving, while the bottle holds 2 or more. People don't always check the fine print. Companies count on that. If you eat the full item, as most people do, you end up taking in far more than you planned. Processed foods are cheap to make and easy to sell. The ingredients, refined grains, added sugars, seed oils, preservatives, are low cost and long-lasting. That's good for business. But these foods often lack real nutrition. They fill you up in the moment, but don't fuel your body in the long term. Over time, they can lead to weight gain, blood sugar problems, and other health issues. The brain plays a key role in all of this. When you eat highly processed food, your brain gets a spike of dopamine, the chemical linked to pleasure and reward. The spike feels good, but it fades fast. Your brain remembers the high and starts to seek it again. This pattern can look like addiction. The more you eat, the more your brain wants it, even if you don't feel hungry. Some people say food addiction isn't real because everyone needs food to live, but that misses the point. The issue isn't eating itself, it's the way certain foods are engineered to override your natural limits. You're not just hungry, you're being manipulated. And once the habit forms, it's hard to break. Real food, whole vegetables, grains, proteins, doesn't trigger the same cycle. It may taste good, but it doesn't flood your brain or hijack your signals. You eat it, feel full, and move on. Processed food works differently. It's built to make you lose track of how much you've had and to make you want more, even when you don't need it. This design is not accidental. It's the result of years of research, testing, and fine-tuning. Big food companies hire experts in neuroscience, psychology, and chemistry to make products that hit the right triggers. Their job is not to make you healthy. It's to make sure you buy again and again. Most people use free apps and services every day: email, maps, social media, streaming platforms. These tools make life easier. They cost nothing to download, sign up for, or use. But they are not truly free. You pay with your data. The service watches what you do, collects your information, and sells access to your behavior. If you're not paying with money, you're paying with yourself. Every time you search, click, scroll, or pause, you leave a digital trail. The service records where you are, what device you use, how long you stay, and what catches your eye. This data builds a detailed profile: your age, interests, habits, income, and even your moods. That profile isn't stored for your benefit. It's sold, shared, and used to target you with ads, offers, and content. The more data they collect, the more money they make. Social media is one of the clearest examples. You sign up, create a profile, and start posting. The platform tracks your likes, your messages, your searches, and your connections. It monitors your face in photos, your tone in comments, and your time on each post. It learns what makes you angry, what keeps you scrolling, and what makes you click. Then it sells that insight to advertisers who want your attention. Email services also scan content. They read subject lines and even message bodies to identify keywords, trends, and potential sales targets. A message about a trip might lead to travel ads. A note about health might prompt pharmacy suggestions. The service doesn't need a person to read your emails. Algorithms do the job. Your inbox becomes a source of marketing data. Maps and navigation apps log your every movement. They record where you go, how often, what time, and how long you stay. That information can reveal your job, your habits, your relationships, and your routines. It's useful for advertisers who want to know when you're near a store. It's also valuable to companies building location-based tools or looking to predict behavior. Streaming services collect more than what you watch. They record when you pause, skip, or replay. They know what you binge and what you drop. That helps them design shows, target ads, and shape recommendations to keep you watching longer. You get convenience. They get a steady stream of behavioral data they can sell or use to raise their value. Cloud storage seems harmless, just a place to keep files, but your stored documents, photos, and backups may be scanned to detect content and flag trends. That data can feed into machine learning tools or be used to create customer profiles. Even if the content stays private, the metadata, file types, sizes, frequency of uploads, tells a story. Browser extensions and plugins are another risk. Many offer helpful tools like grammar checks, price comparisons, or tab managers, but some collect your entire browsing history even when you're not using the tool directly. They track every site you visit and how you interact with it. That information can be sold to marketers, data brokers, or analytics firms. Free games collect data too. They may track your in-game behavior, chat logs, friend lists, and payment attempts. Many of these games are designed to get you to share more, connect with social media, invite friends, accept notifications. The game becomes a funnel for data collection, not just entertainment. The phrase, "you're the product," is more than a saying. It describes a business model. Free services attract users. Users create data. Data gets monetized. The company's value depends not on what it offers you, but on what it learns about you and how it can sell that insight to others. Your clicks, likes, and views become inventory. Most companies say they anonymize data, but anonymity doesn't last long. A few data points, like location, device type, and usage time, can often be traced back to you. Researchers have shown that with just a handful of details, they can re-identify users from anonymized datasets. Once your habits are known, they're hard to take back. Some services give you privacy settings, but they're often buried in menus or written in vague language. Even if you turn off one setting, others stay active. The defaults usually favor tracking. To truly opt out, you'd need to read long policies, change settings often, and use tools that block tracking across multiple platforms. Surveillance doesn't just mean watching, it means shaping. When companies know your habits, they can guide your choices. They can show some people one price and others a higher one. They can push content that keeps you online longer, even if it's misleading or divisive. They can flood your feed with ads so personalized they feel like coincidence. Your behavior is not just tracked, it's nudged. The cost of free is not only privacy, it's control. Once your data is collected, it's hard to see where it goes, how it's used, or what decisions it influences. You lose control over your digital self. You trade freedom for access. And the companies collecting that data don't always tell you what they're doing. They don't have to. You clicked agree. Tech companies don't just want your clicks, they want your time. The longer you look, scroll, watch, or tap, the more money they make. Every second you spend on an app, a platform, or a site is worth something to them. Not because of what you gain, but because of what they can show you while you're there. Ads, suggestions, products. Attention has become the main currency in the digital economy. This shift changes how companies design what you see. It's no longer about providing the best service. It's about keeping you engaged. Every platform, social media, video streaming, news, or games, competes for your time. If one grabs your focus for longer than another, it wins. That time is then sold to advertisers or used to shape what you see next, pulling you in even deeper. Most apps use algorithms built to predict and guide your behavior. They track what you click, what you like, and how long you pause. Then they show you more of it. Not necessarily what's true or helpful, just what will keep you looking. If outrage keeps you online, you'll see more outrage. If a certain type of video holds your attention, the feed fills with more of the same. It's not about what you choose, it's about what keeps you from leaving. This system trains you to stay distracted. Notifications buzz, new content appears. Features like infinite scroll or autoplay remove stopping points. You don't need to decide what to do next. The app does it for you. The design isn't neutral. It's built to reduce friction and increase screen time. When you finally stop, hours may have passed without you realizing. Many platforms borrow tactics from gambling. Slot machines reward random behavior. You pull a lever, and maybe you win. Social media works the same way. You refresh a feed, and maybe there's a new like, a message, or a post. That small chance of a reward keeps you hooked. The uncertainty is the point. Your brain stays alert, hoping for a hit of something good. The pressure to hold attention affects the content itself. Outlets, creators, and influencers know they need to grab interest fast. Headlines become sharper. Thumbnails become louder. Topics become more extreme. Calm and thoughtful material gets buried under content that provokes a reaction. The system doesn't reward truth or value. It rewards engagement, whatever gets the most views, shares, or comments. This constant stream of stimuli makes it harder to focus. Reading a book, having a long conversation, or working through a complex idea becomes more difficult. Your mind starts looking for the next hit of novelty. The platforms want you to feel like something important might happen any second, so you stay. Over time, your attention span shrinks, and your ability to choose what to focus on weakens. Kids and teens are especially affected. Their brains are still developing. When they spend hours each day on apps designed to hijack attention, it changes how they learn, socialize, and think. They may find it harder to sit still, focus in class, or be alone with their thoughts. Some platforms track these patterns closely and adjust their features to keep young users engaged even longer. This system also fuels anxiety. When your attention is shaped by algorithms, you often see a distorted version of the world. You may think everyone is angry, successful, perfect, or falling apart, depending on what gets shown to you. The content may be tailored to your fears, hopes, or insecurities, because that's what keeps you coming back. What you see online is not random. It's designed to keep you looking. In this economy, your attention is a resource. The platforms extract it and sell access to it. You might think you're just watching a video or reading a post, but behind the screen, data is being collected, predictions are being made, and your future behavior is being shaped. Your attention funds the entire model. You don't pay for most apps with money. You pay with your time, your focus, and your habits. That cost adds up. It changes how you think, how you feel, and how you spend your days. If your attention is always being pulled by something else, you have less of it to use for what matters to you. That's the trade-off, even if you never see a receipt. Slavery did not end with the 19th century. It changed form. Today, millions of people live in conditions of forced labor, debt bondage, and exploitation. They work long hours for little or no pay. They cannot leave. They are controlled through threats, violence, or lies. This is modern slavery, and it exists in nearly every country. Factories in some parts of the world rely on workers who live in locked compounds, are paid below minimum wage, and have no right to protest. Many of these factories produce clothing, electronics, and goods for export. Some workers are children. Others are migrants who were promised fair jobs but found themselves trapped. They might work 12 or 14 hours a day with few breaks and no choice to quit. If they try, they risk losing everything or facing punishment. Debt bondage is common in industries like farming, mining, brickmaking, and fishing. A person may borrow a small amount of money, often for medical care or food. In return, they agree to work for a period of time, but the debt grows. Interest rates are high. Fees are added. The work never ends. Whole families can be born into this system, growing up and growing old without freedom. In wealthier countries, forced labor still happens. It often hides in plain sight. Undocumented workers may be afraid to speak up, even when abused. They may be forced to work in restaurants, cleaning services, or construction. Employers take their passports, threaten deportation, or promise payment that never comes. Victims stay quiet because they feel they have no other option. Domestic work is another hidden area. Some women went as housekeepers or caregivers in private homes, isolated and under strict control. They may be forbidden to leave the house, denied time off, or even physically abused. Because the work happens behind closed doors, it's hard to track or expose. Some employers take advantage of the fact that the worker doesn't know the language or their rights. Human trafficking plays a major role in modern slavery. People are bought, sold, and moved across borders. Some are promised jobs or education, but are forced into prostitution, begging, or labor. Others are taken by force. Traffickers use fear, lies, and violence to control their victims. Victims may not know where they are or how to escape. Some are told their families will be harmed if they try. Many of the products used every day, coffee, cocoa, seafood, gold, and smartphones, have links to forced labor. Supply chains are long and complex. It's hard to trace where materials come from or who made them. Big companies often say they don't know, but the signs are there. Reports and investigations keep showing the same problems. Exploitation is not rare. It's part of the business model. Even state governments use forced labor. Some countries run prison systems or work camps where inmates are forced to work under harsh conditions. In some cases, people are arrested for minor or made-up charges just to provide cheap labor. Political prisoners may be punished with forced labor as a form of control or intimidation. These systems operate with little oversight and no accountability. Modern slavery does not always use chains or whips. It uses poverty, fear, and control. Victims may not see themselves as slaves, especially if they receive some payment. But if they cannot leave, if they are being threatened, or if their freedom is being controlled by someone else, the label applies. Slavery is not about ownership anymore. It's about power. Technology has made parts of the problem worse. Traffickers use social media to lure victims. Ads for fake jobs or fake relationships target people who are already vulnerable. Once someone takes the bait, the trafficker takes control. On the other end, customers can use the same tools to order illegal labor or services, often with little risk of being caught. Law enforcement struggles to keep up. Victims may not report crimes. They may be afraid of police or unable to explain what happened. Cases are hard to prove. Even when arrests are made, the larger networks often stay intact. The profit is high, the risk is low. That's why the system continues. Some victims are rescued. Some find help through shelters or support groups, but most remain trapped. Their lives are controlled by others, their labor stolen, their freedom denied. They may be working in places we pass every day. They may be making the things we buy. Slavery didn't vanish, it adapted. It went underground, but it never stopped. The justice system is supposed to treat everyone equally. In practice, it often favors people with money, power, and connections. Wealthy defendants can hire top lawyers, shape public opinion, and delay cases for years. Poor defendants face tight deadlines, overworked public defenders, and harsh penalties. The system may say it's fair, but outcomes tell a different story. When someone is arrested, the first major decision is often bail. Judges decide whether a person waits at home or in jail before trial. Those with money can post bail and go free. Those without it stay locked up, sometimes for weeks or months. This happens even if the charges are minor or the person poses no risk. The result is clear. Freedom before trial depends more on cash than on justice. Legal representation also shows the gap. Wealthy defendants hire private attorneys with full teams, expert witnesses, and time to prepare. They file motions, challenge evidence, and build strong cases. Poor defendants rely on public defenders, who may carry dozens of cases at once. They may get little time to meet with clients or review files. In some cases, public defenders have just a few minutes to prepare before court. That's not a level field. Sentencing follows the same pattern. Studies show that people with high income or status often receive lighter penalties for the same crimes. Judges may view them as less of a risk or more likely to turn their life around. Meanwhile, people from poor backgrounds are more likely to be sentenced to prison. Their past, their neighborhood, or even their body language in court can work against them. Consider two people charged with drug possession. One is a college student from a wealthy family. The other is unemployed and lives in a high-crime area. The charges are the same, but the student may be offered diversion programs, therapy, or community service. The other person may face jail. The system sees one as worth saving, the other not so much. Famous cases show this gap clearly. When celebrities or public figures face charges, they often avoid prison altogether. If they're convicted, the sentence is short or served at home. When average people commit similar offenses, the punishment is often much harsher. The difference is not the law, it's access to influence, media, and money. Corporate crimes show the biggest divide. A person caught stealing from a store may go to jail. A company that steals millions through fraud may pay a fine and move on. Executives rarely face criminal charges. Even when they do, the case may end in a settlement with no admission of guilt. The public sees a press release. No one sees a jail cell. Race and class often overlap in these outcomes. People of color are more likely to be stopped, searched, charged, and sentenced. Add poverty to the mix, and the chances of a harsh outcome rise even more. Wealth can't erase race, but it often softens the blow. Poor defendants of any background face the toughest path. Juvenile justice is also shaped by power. Kids from poor communities may be charged as adults for serious crimes. Their backgrounds, neglect, trauma, poverty, are often ignored. Wealthy kids who break the law may be seen as troubled, not dangerous. They get treatment. Others get time. Some judges have been caught taking bribes or favoring certain law firms. But even when the system follows the rules, bias can still shape decisions. A defendant's clothing, speech, or attitude may influence a jury. Wealthy defendants can afford image consultants, media advisors, and court-friendly outfits. They're coached on how to speak, how to look, how to act. These small details can change a verdict. Appeals are another point of difference. Filing an appeal takes time, money, and legal skill. People with resources can fight cases for years. They can afford to keep going. Poor defendants may not even know they have that option. Their sentence stands, not because it was just, but because they had no way to challenge it. Technology plays a role too. Some courts use algorithms to assess risk and suggest sentences. These tools are meant to reduce bias, but they often rely on flawed data. If past arrests were higher in certain areas, the system may label people from those areas as high risk. That reinforces the same cycle. The result is a system that looks objective, but repeats old patterns. Plea deals are common in criminal court. Over 90% of cases end this way. A defendant agrees to plead guilty in exchange for a lighter sentence. It sounds fair, but many people take plea deals not because they're guilty, but because they're scared. They can't afford bail. They don't trust the process. They fear the risk of trial. Wealthy defendants have more options. They can wait, prepare, and negotiate from a position of strength. The system's appearance of fairness often masks these deep imbalances. The laws may be the same for everyone. The outcomes are not. Wealth and power don't guarantee victory, but they shift the odds. In a system meant to judge facts, it's often money that matters most. Philanthropy is often presented as generosity. Wealthy people give money to hospitals, schools, museums, and charities. They receive praise, awards, and their names on buildings. But many of these donations are not acts of pure goodwill. They are carefully planned moves that protect status, reduce taxes, and distract from how that wealth was built in the first place. When a billionaire donates to a cause, it often comes with conditions. The gift may fund a specific wing, a research topic, or a program that aligns with their personal or business interests. It may require naming rights or control over how the money is spent. These donations can shape public institutions in ways that reflect one person's goals, not the broader public's needs. At the same time, the donor receives a tax break. In many countries, donations to nonprofits are tax deductible. That means for every dollar given, the donor may pay less in taxes. In effect, part of the donation is covered by the public. Meanwhile, the donor gains influence, visibility, and a cleaner image. Their giving becomes a kind of investment, one that buys prestige and power. Some of the same people who give away millions also fund industries or practices that cause harm. A company might pollute the environment, underpay workers, or lobby against regulation. Then its founder gives to environmental groups or education programs. The donation draws attention. The business practices do not. This is reputation laundering. The harm stays in the background. The charity moves to the front. Large donations also change how nonprofits work. When an organization relies on a few major donors, it may shift its mission to keep the money flowing. It may avoid controversial issues. It may frame its work in a way that flatters donors rather than challenges systems. The result is a sector shaped by the preferences of the wealthy, even when those preferences conflict with real needs. Some philanthropists set up private foundations. These are nonprofits they control. They move their money into the foundation, claim a tax break, and then decide when and how to give it away. In some cases, they only need to spend a small fraction of the money each year, often just 5%. The rest stays invested, growing tax-free. This allows wealth to stay in the family, avoid taxes, and remain under private control while appearing generous to the public. Many foundations spend heavily on salaries, offices, and public relations. They promote their work with glossy reports and professional videos. They invite journalists to cover their grants. The story becomes about the donor's vision and impact, not the system that made their wealth possible. It becomes hard to question how they earned their money or what role they played in creating the problems they now claim to solve. Corporate giving follows similar patterns. A company may donate to a local school while fighting labor laws behind the scenes. It may fund clean water projects while draining aquifers for profit. The donation is small compared to revenue, but it shifts the story. The company becomes a partner in change, not a source of harm. This kind of giving is less about fixing problems and more about managing public image. Philanthropy also acts as a soft power tool. Wealthy donors build relationships with politicians, university leaders, and nonprofit boards. They sit on panels, give speeches, and influence policy. Their giving buys them access to decision makers. In some cases, it even shapes legislation. The money opens doors that would otherwise stay closed. In elite spaces, giving becomes a form of competition. Donors compare amounts, they seek media coverage and legacy projects. Giving is not private, it's branded. It comes with press releases, naming ceremonies, and public praise. This turns charity into a performance. The impact becomes secondary to the recognition. Meanwhile, many people give quietly, without tax breaks or public thanks. They donate time, food, or money because they care, not because it helps their image. Their giving supports local groups, neighbors, and mutual aid. It doesn't come with headlines or power, but it often meets real needs more directly than a foundation ever will. It's not that all philanthropy is harmful. Some giving helps people, some programs do real good, but it's important to ask who benefits most. Is the donation helping others or helping the donor look better, pay less tax, and hold more influence? Is it solving the problem or just covering it up? The truth is that many donations are not about generosity, they're about control. They allow the wealthy to shape public life without public accountability. They offer the appearance of justice without changing the systems that create inequality. And they turn charity into a tool for power, not fairness. Marketing does more than tell you about products. It shapes what you want. It convinces you that you need things you never thought about before. It creates desires out of thin air and makes them feel urgent and necessary. This manipulation is planned and precise, designed to turn consumers into buyers of things they didn't really need. When a new phone comes out, marketing doesn't just explain the features. It shows you people using the phone in perfect settings, traveling, laughing, working, or connecting. It sells a lifestyle, not just a device. The message is clear. If you want to belong, be successful, or feel happy, you need this phone. The product becomes a symbol, not just a tool. Ads use emotions to push sales. Fear, envy, status, and belonging are common triggers. A commercial for skincare might not just promise clear skin, but suggest that without it, you won't be noticed or loved. A car ad may imply that owning the latest model means respect and freedom. These messages tap into deep feelings, making the product seem essential to your identity and social standing. Companies also create problems and then sell solutions. Deodorant ads suggest you'll smell bad without their brand. Cleaning products imply your home isn't safe or clean enough. Beauty campaigns push the idea that wrinkles or gray hair are flaws to fix. Suddenly, you see issues where none existed before. The product then becomes a way to fix those invented problems. Limited time offers and sales add urgency. Marketers say a deal ends soon or that stock is low. This pressure makes you act quickly without thinking. You buy because you fear missing out, not because you need the item. The product gains value in your mind simply because it seems scarce or temporary. Packaging plays a role too. Bright colors, sleek designs, and clever names make products stand out on shelves. They catch your eye and make items seem more exciting or useful. Sometimes packaging suggests quality that the product doesn't deliver. A fancy bottle or label can make a cheap product feel like a luxury item. Social media influencers amplify these effects. They showcase products in their daily lives, making them seem natural and desirable. Followers want to emulate them. The influencer's approval turns products into must-haves. Even if the product doesn't fit your needs, the desire to belong to that group pushes you to buy. Marketers track your behavior online to tailor ads just for you. If you search for running shoes, ads for sports gear will follow you everywhere. If you look at makeup tutorials, you'll see offers for cosmetics. This targeted marketing makes the product feel personal and relevant. It tricks your brain into thinking the ad understands your needs better than you do. Brands use repetition to build familiarity and trust. Seeing the same logo or slogan over and over makes it feel normal and safe. This constant exposure lowers your defenses. You're more likely to buy from a brand you recognize, even if you don't need the product. Familiarity becomes a shortcut for trust. Marketing also shifts with trends and culture. Companies tap into current movements, health, sustainability, technology, to make products seem modern and important. A water bottle isn't just a bottle, it's a symbol of eco-consciousness. A phone case isn't just protection, it's fashion. The product rides the wave of culture, making it harder to say no. The effects add up over time. Small purchases turn into habits. Wants pile up into clutter. Debt grows. People chase the next upgrade or sale, thinking it will solve a problem or improve life. But the underlying needs don't change. The satisfaction is temporary. The next marketing push soon fills the gap. Some products truly solve problems or improve life, but marketing doesn't always help you see that clearly. Instead, it blurs the line between need and want, between what helps and what distracts. It creates a world where desire is manufactured, not natural. Being aware of this helps. When you see an ad, you can ask, do I really need this? Is this product solving a real problem for me? Or is it selling a feeling or status? Do I feel pressured to buy because of how the message makes me feel? Learning to recognize marketing tactics gives you control over what you choose to bring into your life. In the end, marketing works best when you don't notice it. It shapes your desires quietly through stories, images, and feelings. The products you buy may not be about you at all. They may be about what companies want you to want. Many people spend most of their waking hours at work. Yet for a large number, that work feels meaningless. They do tasks that don't matter to them or to society. They follow orders, fill forms, or push buttons without seeing the impact. The job pays the bills, but it doesn't feed the soul. Imagine a person in a call center. Their job is to read a script, handle complaints, and move on to the next call. They may never see the customer face to face or hear if they helped. Their work is repetitive. The goal is not to solve problems deeply, but to close calls quickly. This kind of work can feel like a grind, disconnected from any real purpose. Many office workers spend hours entering data, writing reports no one reads, or attending meetings that lead nowhere. The tasks often feel bureaucratic. They serve the company's structure, not the workers' values. People learn to tune out or wait for the day to end. The feeling of contributing to something larger fades away. Jobs in fast food or retail can feel similar. Employees follow strict rules, manage transactions, and restock shelves. They rarely get to influence decisions or see how their effort helps the community. Customers come and go. The work is physical and fast-paced, but often lacks connection or growth. Workers may wonder if their role matters beyond the next shift. Even in skilled professions, workers can feel trapped in meaningless routines. A factory worker assembling parts might never see the finished product or understand how it fits into the bigger picture. A clerk in a hospital might file records without knowing the patient's outcome. The system breaks work into small tasks, removing context and meaning. Sometimes jobs exist mainly to support other jobs rather than to create value. Think about layers of management or administrative roles that multiply paperwork, rules, and approvals. These jobs can create busy work that serves the company's internal needs but adds little to society. Workers may spend time justifying their role or keeping the system running, rather than building or creating. The term bullshit jobs was coined to describe work that even the worker knows is pointless. These jobs can bring status or income, but not satisfaction. People feel their time is wasted. They may pretend to be busy or hide behind jargon. The result is stress, boredom, and disconnection. This lack of meaning has real effects. Workers who don't find purpose may struggle with motivation or mental health. They may feel alienated, as if their skills and creativity go unused. That feeling is not just personal. It reflects a system that values profit and control over human fulfillment. The structure of many workplaces reinforces this. Jobs are assigned by hierarchy, not interest. Workers have little say in what they do or how they do it. Innovation is often discouraged if it threatens routines. Rewards focus on output, attendance, or compliance, not creativity or impact. The system treats people as cogs, not individuals. Some jobs that seem meaningless are essential. Cleaning staff, janitors, and maintenance workers keep buildings safe and running. Yet their work is often undervalued or invisible. They don't get credit for the comfort or safety they provide. The same is true for caregivers or assistants who support others behind the scenes. Their roles matter deeply, but society may not recognize them. Technology and automation have changed work, but not always for the better. Machines can take over routine tasks, but often that just shifts workers into new roles with the same lack of meaning. In some cases, technology adds surveillance or pressure, making workers feel even less valued. It's not always about freeing people, it's about efficiency. Some people find meaning outside of work, in hobbies, family, community, or activism. But for many, work takes up so much time and energy that there's little left for other parts of life. When work doesn't provide fulfillment, people may feel trapped or resigned. Changing this requires rethinking what work means. It means creating roles where people can see the impact of their effort. It means giving workers more control, more creativity, and more respect. It means recognizing the value in all kinds of labor, not just those tied to profit. Work could be a source of pride and purpose, but under current systems, it often isn't. For many, it's a necessary task without deeper meaning. That gap between work and fulfillment is one of the quiet struggles in daily life. It shapes how people feel about themselves, their time, and their place in the world. Debt shapes many people's lives in ways they don't always see. Student loans, credit cards, and mortgages are tools that can help in the short term, but often end up trapping people for years or decades. Debt isn't just money owed. It's a way to control choices, limit freedom, and keep people tied to systems that benefit lenders more than borrowers. Take student loans. College is expensive, and many students borrow to pay tuition, housing, and books. At first, it seems like a stepping stone, an investment in the future. But the bills come due long after graduation. Interest adds up. Payments take a large part of income. People delay buying homes, starting families, or saving for retirement because of these debts. The loan follows them, shaping decisions and creating stress. Credit cards offer another form of control. They promise convenience and rewards, but the interest rates are high, and minimum payments only cover a small part of what's owed. If someone falls behind, fees and penalties pile on. The debt grows faster than payments can reduce it. Many people find themselves stuck in cycles of borrowing and paying, unable to break free. This keeps them dependent on lenders and vulnerable to economic shocks. Mortgages seem different because they lead to homeownership, but they also tie people down. A 30-year loan means decades of payments. Missing even one can lead to foreclosure. Rising interest rates or falling home values can make payments harder. The mortgage shapes where people live, what jobs they take, and how they spend money. Owning a home feels like freedom, but the debt behind it can be a heavy burden. Debt creates a power imbalance. Lenders hold the upper hand. They set terms, fees, and penalties. They have legal tools to collect, including wage garnishment or asset seizure. Borrowers often have little ability to negotiate. The system is designed so that lenders win, even when borrowers struggle. This power extends beyond individuals. Governments and large institutions issue debt on a massive scale. Countries borrow to fund programs, but debt payments limit what governments can spend on public services. That means cuts to education, health, and infrastructure. Ordinary people feel the squeeze while debt collectors collect. Debt also affects mental health. Constant worry about money, calls from collectors, and the feeling of owing can cause anxiety and depression. People may avoid seeking help or delay important life choices because they fear financial collapse. The burden of debt is more than numbers. It's a weight on everyday life. Some say debt teaches responsibility or discipline, but many people enter debt without full understanding. Loans are sold aggressively. Terms are confusing. Interest rates and fees are hidden or unclear. Borrowers may not realize the full cost until it's too late. That's not education, it's exploitation. Debt can limit opportunity. A person with poor credit may be denied jobs, apartments, or insurance. Employers sometimes check credit scores. Landlords may refuse renters with debt. The system penalizes those who are already struggling, making it harder to improve their situation. Debt also shapes politics. Financial industries spend heavily on lobbying and campaigns. They push for laws that protect their profits, resist debt forgiveness, and block stronger consumer protections. This political influence keeps the system tilted in their favor. Alternatives to debt exist, but are limited. Savings, community support, or affordable public education can reduce the need to borrow. But these options require time, resources, and political will. Without them, debt remains the default path for many. Breaking free from debt is hard. It may require years of sacrifice, negotiation, or bankruptcy. But the system often punishes those who try to escape. Bankruptcy laws vary and can have lasting effects on credit and life. The cycle continues, trapping new generations. Debt is not just a financial tool. It's a means of control. It shapes lives, limits choices, and enforces power. Understanding this helps reveal why so many people struggle. Even when they work hard, the burden of debt is more than dollars owed. It's a barrier to freedom. Politicians often say they represent the people. They promise to listen to voters, address their concerns, and make decisions in the public's interest. But in reality, many politicians answer first to those who fund their campaigns. Donors and special interests hold more sway than ordinary voters, shaping policy and priorities behind the scenes. Campaigns cost a lot of money. Running for office means paying for staff, advertising, events, and travel. Most politicians don't have personal wealth to cover these expenses. They rely on donations from individuals, corporations, and political action committees. The biggest donors provide the largest sums. Without their support, candidates often struggle to compete. Because of this, politicians spend much time courting donors. They attend fundraisers, make speeches, and meet privately with wealthy backers. These meetings influence their agendas. Donors expect access and influence in return. They may push for policies that protect their industries, reduce their taxes, or block regulations. Politicians depend on these funds to stay in office, so they often prioritize donor interests. At the same time, regular voters have little direct contact with politicians. Town halls and public forums exist, but many citizens feel their voices go unheard. Politicians may listen politely, but then focus on donor demands. The result is a disconnect between what voters want and what politicians deliver. Laws may favor corporations or wealthy individuals, even if public opinion calls for change. Lobbyists amplify this effect. These are professionals hired by industries to influence lawmakers. They draft bills, suggest language, and build relationships with key officials. Lobbyists often come from government backgrounds, so they know how to navigate the system. They represent powerful clients with deep pockets. Their influence can overshadow the input of everyday people. Some politicians openly acknowledge the role of money in politics. They say it's a necessary evil or part of the system. But many also argue that large donations create conflicts of interest. When a politician's campaign relies on a handful of wealthy donors, it's hard to trust that decisions are made for the public good. The appearance of influence erodes faith in democracy. Voters who want change face obstacles. Campaign finance laws allow unlimited spending by certain groups. Political action committees, super PACs, and nonprofit organizations can pour millions into elections without clear disclosure. This flood of money drowns out smaller voices. Grassroots movements often struggle to compete against well-funded campaigns. The media plays a role too. Political coverage focuses on fundraising totals, polling numbers, and strategy. It often highlights the candidates with the most money, creating a cycle where funding drives visibility. Voters hear about the biggest spenders more than the ideas or policies. That shapes who gets elected and whose interests get prioritized. Some politicians do try to resist these pressures. They refuse corporate donations or limit individual gifts. They run grassroots campaigns funded by small donors. But these candidates face uphill battles. Without big money, they often lose access and influence. The system favors those willing or able to play the fundraising game. This dynamic also affects policy once officials are elected. Bills that threaten powerful interests rarely pass. Laws that benefit donors are fast-tracked. Politicians use their platforms to support industries that fund their campaigns. Meanwhile, issues like healthcare, education, and inequality receive less attention or weak solutions. The influence of donors shapes not only elections, but governance. Appointments to key positions, regulatory decisions, and budget priorities often reflect donor priorities. Politicians build careers by maintaining relationships with moneyed interests. This creates a feedback loop where power and wealth reinforce each other. Citizens may feel powerless in this system. Voting seems important, but the choices are often limited by who has money and influence. Policies rarely shift dramatically without donor support. This gap between public will and political action breeds cynicism and disengagement. Some reforms aim to reduce donor influence. Public financing, spending limits, and transparency laws try to level the playing field. But these efforts face strong opposition from those who benefit most from the status quo. Change requires political will that is often lacking. In the end, politicians rarely represent the people fully. They are more accountable to those who fund their campaigns than to the voters who elect them. This reality shapes how laws are made, who benefits, and who is left behind. Understanding this helps explain why political promises often fall short and why democracy feels out of reach for many. Wealth inequality is a reality that runs deeper than most people realize. A tiny group of individuals holds more wealth than billions of others combined. This concentration of money shapes the economy, politics, and society in ways that affect everyone, often without them noticing. Imagine a small circle of billionaires. Their combined wealth surpasses that of entire continents. They own vast companies, real estate, stocks, and other assets. Their money grows not only through work, but through investments, interest, and ownership. Meanwhile, the majority of people rely mainly on wages that barely keep up with the cost of living. This gap is not just about having more money. It means having power. Wealth allows people to influence politics, shape laws, and control industries. It grants access to education, healthcare, and opportunities that remain out of reach for many. The rich can protect and grow their wealth in ways that most cannot. For example, consider taxes. Wealthy individuals often pay lower rates on investment income than on wages. They use trusts, loopholes, and offshore accounts to reduce their tax bills. These strategies are legal, but deepen inequality by shifting the tax burden onto workers and the middle class. The result is less funding for public services that everyone relies on. The housing market also reflects this divide. Rich investors buy properties as investments, sometimes leaving them empty or renting at high rates. This drives up prices and rents, making it harder for average people to afford homes. Home ownership, once a path to building wealth, becomes out of reach for many families. The wealthy benefit from property appreciation, while others struggle to pay rent. Education is another area shaped by wealth. Families with money can afford private schools, tutoring, and college. This access opens doors to better jobs and higher incomes. Those without means depend on public schools, which often lack funding and resources. The cycle repeats. Wealth buys opportunity, which creates more wealth. Healthcare follows a similar pattern. Wealthier people get better coverage, quicker treatment, and access to specialists. Those without money face long waits, high costs, and limited options. Illness can push low-income families deeper into poverty, while the rich can afford care that keeps them healthy and working. Wealth inequality also affects the job market. Large companies owned by wealthy investors prioritize profits and shareholder value. They may cut wages, reduce benefits, or outsource jobs to increase returns. Workers face stagnant incomes and job insecurity. Meanwhile, executives earn millions in bonuses and stock options. Political influence grows with wealth. The richest individuals and corporations spend billions on lobbying, campaign donations, and think tanks. They shape policies that protect their interests, from tax laws to environmental regulations. Ordinary voters have less access and influence. The system becomes skewed toward those who hold the most money. This concentration of wealth can slow economic growth. When money is held by a few, it circulates less in the broader economy. Middle and low-income families spend most of their income on goods and services, supporting businesses and jobs. The wealthy often invest in assets that don't directly create jobs. This imbalance can lead to slower overall growth and fewer opportunities. The scale of wealth inequality also creates social problems. It contributes to housing crises, education gaps, and health disparities. It fuels political polarization as different groups compete for scarce resources. It undermines trust in institutions when people see the system favoring the rich. Some argue that wealth inequality rewards success and drives innovation. But extreme concentration can stifle competition. When a few control markets, they can set prices, block new entrants, and shape industries to their benefit. This reduces choices for consumers and opportunities for entrepreneurs. Understanding wealth inequality means looking beyond income. Wealth includes assets like stocks, property, and savings. These provide security, power, and the ability to influence. Income alone doesn't capture this. Many people earn enough to live, but have little or no wealth. One unexpected expense can push them into crisis. Wealth inequality also affects future generations. Children born into wealthy families inherit advantages, education, networks, capital that others don't. This perpetuates the gap over time. Social mobility shrinks. The promise that anyone can succeed with hard work becomes harder to believe. Policies can reduce inequality. Progressive taxes, stronger labor rights, affordable housing, and better education funding help. But change faces resistance from those who benefit most from the status quo. Wealth concentration gives power to block reforms and maintain advantages. The reality is that wealth inequality is deeper and more entrenched than most realize. A handful of people control an enormous share of resources, shaping the world in ways that affect everyone else. Recognizing this is the first step toward understanding how power works and what it means for the future. Prisons are often seen as places to keep people safe and punish those who break the law. But behind the walls, a different system operates, one where making money depends on keeping as many people locked up as possible. The prison industrial complex is a network of private companies, government agencies, and contractors that profit from high incarceration rates, not from justice or rehabilitation. Private companies run many prisons and detention centers. They sign contracts with governments to manage facilities, provide food, healthcare, and security. These contracts usually pay based on the number of beds filled. The more people imprisoned, the more money the companies make. This creates a financial incentive to keep prisons full, not to reduce crime or help people rebuild their lives. In some places, companies charge fees for basic services like phone calls, video visits, or commissary items. Families of prisoners often pay high rates just to stay in touch. These costs can add up, making it harder for inmates to maintain relationships and support. The system turns communication, a basic human need, into a source of profit. Prison labor is another way money is made. Inmates may work in factories, farms, or call centers. They often earn pennies or nothing at all. Their work benefits private companies or state agencies. This labor system resembles slavery by another name. Prisoners have little choice and limited rights. The profits from their work rarely go to them or their families. The demand for prison space shapes policies and laws. Tough sentencing laws, mandatory minimums, and 3 strikes rules increase prison populations. These policies don't always improve public safety. They often punish low-level offenses with long sentences. Politicians support these laws because they appear tough on crime, but they also fuel the prison industry's growth. Jail construction is booming in some regions. New facilities are built to house more inmates, creating jobs and business for construction firms, suppliers, and local economies. This growth depends on a steady stream of prisoners. Reducing incarceration threatens these economic interests, so change faces strong opposition. Communities near prisons often rely on them for employment and tax revenue. The prison becomes a major economic driver. This can create resistance to reform, as closing or downsizing facilities would mean job losses and less income for local governments. The cycle reinforces itself. Prisons grow to support economies, not just serve justice. Private probation and parole companies also profit from the system. People released from prison may have to pay fees for supervision or electronic monitoring. Missing a payment can lead to rearrest and return to jail. This creates a cycle where poverty and debt trap people in the system. Companies collect fees regardless of a person's ability to pay. The system disproportionately affects marginalized communities. People of color, low-income individuals, and those with mental health or substance use issues are overrepresented in prisons. These groups face harsher policing, fewer legal resources, and longer sentences. The profit motive adds a layer of exploitation to existing inequalities. Some companies profit from surveillance technology used in law enforcement and corrections. Cameras, facial recognition, data analytics, and tracking devices are sold as tools to improve safety, but they also expand monitoring and control, often with little oversight. These technologies feed data into the same system that profits from incarceration. Rehabilitation programs exist in theory, but often take a back seat to profit. Education, mental health care, and job training are underfunded. The focus remains on punishment and control. When inmates succeed and stay out of prison, the system loses revenue. That creates a conflict between what's best for people and what's best for business. Private prisons lobby to influence legislation and public opinion. They fund campaigns, hire lobbyists, and sponsor research that supports tough-on-crime policies. Their goal is to maintain and expand their market. This political influence makes reform harder. Efforts to reduce incarceration often meet resistance backed by well-funded industry groups. The media often frames prison issues as crime stories, focusing on offenders rather than the system. This coverage can support the narrative that more prisons and harsher sentences are necessary. The role of profit and business is rarely discussed. Public awareness remains limited. Ending the profit motive in incarceration would require major changes. It would mean shifting from punishment to prevention and support. It would involve investing in communities, education, and social services rather than building more prisons. But as long as money flows from locking people up, the system will resist change. Prisons are more than just buildings or institutions. They are part of a business model that values profit over people. The higher the incarceration rates, the more money is made. This reality shapes laws, policies, and lives, often in ways that serve business interests instead of justice. Fast fashion promises trendy clothes at low prices. It seems like a good deal. New styles that change with the season, affordable for most people. But behind those cheap prices lies a harsh reality. Fast fashion destroys lives and harms the planet. The true cost of cheap clothes is far higher than the price tag suggests. To keep prices low, companies rely on factories in countries with weak labor laws. Workers, often women and children, face long hours, unsafe conditions, and low wages. These factories may cut corners on safety to speed up production. Accidents and health problems are common. Workers often have little power to demand better treatment, fearing job loss or retaliation. One tragic example is the collapse of the Rana Plaza building in Bangladesh in 2013. Over 1,000 garment workers died when the factory building collapsed. The structure was unsafe, but orders to produce more clothes at low cost pushed workers to keep coming to work despite the risks. This disaster showed how fast fashion profits come from putting workers in harm's way. The pressure to produce new styles quickly leads to intense work cycles. Factories operate 24/7 to meet deadlines. Workers face exhausting schedules with few breaks. This pace harms physical and mental health. Despite the hard work, many workers earn just a fraction of a living wage. Poverty and exploitation are built into the system. Fast fashion also fuels massive waste. Clothes are designed to be cheap and trendy, not durable. Shoppers buy more than they need and discard items after only a few wears. Landfills fill with synthetic fabrics that don't decompose. Some estimates say the fashion industry produces more waste than any other consumer industry. The production process uses huge amounts of water and chemicals. Growing cotton requires irrigation, pesticides, and fertilizers that pollute rivers and soil. Dyeing fabrics involves toxic chemicals that can harm local communities and wildlife when released untreated. The environmental damage from fast fashion contributes to water scarcity, pollution, and loss of biodiversity. Transporting clothes from factories to stores adds more pollution. Shipping goods worldwide burns fossil fuels and increases carbon emissions. Fast fashion's global supply chains move goods quickly to keep up with changing trends, creating a heavy carbon footprint. The environmental costs are rarely reflected in the price shoppers pay. Beyond the environment, fast fashion impacts communities. Local textile industries often struggle to compete with cheap imports. Traditional crafts and skills may disappear. Workers in producing countries remain trapped in low-paying, unstable jobs. The industry profits from this inequality, while the benefits rarely reach those who make the clothes. Some brands claim to be ethical or sustainable, but these labels can be misleading. Without strong oversight, companies may greenwash, making products seem better for the environment or workers than they really are. Certifications and audits often fail to capture the full picture. Consumers may be misled into thinking their purchases support fair labor or sustainability, when the reality is more complicated. Consumers also play a role. The desire for constant newness drives demand for fast fashion. Sales, discounts, and social media encourage frequent purchases. Clothes become disposable items rather than long-term investments. Breaking this cycle requires awareness and changes in habits, choosing quality over quantity, repairing instead of replacing, and supporting brands that prioritize fairness and sustainability. Some solutions exist. Slow fashion focuses on quality, durability, and fair labor. It values transparency and accountability in supply chains. Consumers, activists, and organizations push for better laws, corporate responsibility, and education. But these efforts face challenges against a system built on speed, volume, and profit. The true cost of fast fashion is paid by workers, communities, and the environment. The low prices hide a reality of exploitation and pollution. Behind every cheap garment is a story of harm that shoppers rarely see. Understanding this helps us make choices that respect people and the planet, rather than fueling a destructive industry. Many medical systems focus more on making money than on helping patients get well. Treatment often costs more than prevention or cures, and this shapes how care is delivered. Doctors, hospitals, and pharmaceutical companies may prioritize procedures and medications that bring profit, even when simpler or cheaper options could work better. Take chronic diseases like diabetes or heart disease. These conditions require ongoing management, regular doctor visits, tests, medications. Hospitals and clinics earn more when patients return frequently or need expensive treatments. The system rewards long-term care rather than one-time cures or lifestyle changes that might reduce the need for ongoing visits. Pharmaceutical companies play a major role. They develop and market drugs that patients may need for life. New medications are often priced very high, even when cheaper alternatives exist. Companies invest heavily in promoting these drugs to doctors and patients, sometimes downplaying side effects or cheaper options. The goal is to maximize sales, not necessarily to provide the best or most affordable treatment. Surgical procedures can be lucrative too. Hospitals and surgeons may recommend tests, scans, or operations that add to bills. Sometimes, less invasive or non-surgical treatments could work, but they generate less revenue. This creates an incentive to favor interventions over prevention or conservative care. Insurance systems also influence care. In many places, insurance pays for procedures and hospital stays at higher rates than for preventive care or counseling. This shapes what providers offer. Preventive services like nutrition advice or exercise programs may be underfunded or not covered. Patients end up receiving more expensive treatments after problems grow worse. Patients may feel pressure to accept treatments. They trust doctors to recommend what's best, but doctors work within a system that rewards certain procedures. Some doctors face quotas or financial incentives tied to volume. That can affect how options are presented. Patients may not get full information about risks, benefits, or alternatives. Marketing targets both patients and providers. Drug companies spend billions on advertising. Direct-to-consumer ads promote medications with promises of relief, often encouraging patients to ask their doctors for specific drugs. Medical device companies market new technologies that promise better outcomes but come with higher costs. This commercial pressure shapes medical decisions. The system also struggles with transparency. Costs of treatments, hospital stays, and medications vary widely and are often unclear to patients. Bills can be confusing and unpredictable. Patients may face surprise charges or high deductibles. This financial stress affects who gets care and when. Medical research is tied to profit motives. Studies funded by pharmaceutical or device companies may focus on new products rather than prevention or public health. Negative results may be hidden or downplayed. The focus on innovation drives sales but doesn't always improve health outcomes or lower costs. Preventive care, vaccinations, screenings, healthy living support is proven to reduce disease and costs in the long run. But these services often receive less attention and funding. Without early intervention, diseases progress and require costly treatment. The cycle keeps patients tied to the medical system. Patients with limited resources face added challenges. High costs, insurance gaps, and complex billing can deter people from seeking early care. When they finally get help, conditions may be advanced and require expensive treatment. This worsens health disparities and increases overall costs. Some providers and systems work differently. Community clinics, nonprofit hospitals, and public health programs focus on prevention and patient-centered care. They prioritize long-term health over profits. But these options may be limited, underfunded, or hard to access. Changing the system requires rethinking incentives. Payment models that reward quality and outcomes rather than volume can shift focus toward prevention and effective treatment. Transparency in costs and options helps patients make informed choices. Regulation of drug prices and marketing can reduce unnecessary spending. Medical care should be about healing and improving lives. But when profit drives decisions, patients can become customers rather than people in need. Understanding how financial interests shape treatment helps reveal why healthcare often feels confusing, expensive, and frustrating. It also points toward ways to create a system that truly serves health, not wealth. Clean water is something many take for granted, but for billions of people around the world, it remains a struggle. Despite living in a time of great wealth and technological advances, safe drinking water is still a privilege, not a guaranteed right. Access depends heavily on where you live, how much money you have, and the power structures around you. In some cities, people turn on the tap and get clean water instantly. They don't think about where it comes from or how it's treated. But in many rural or poor areas, water sources are far from safe. Wells may be contaminated with bacteria, chemicals, or waste. Rivers and lakes may be polluted by factories, farms, or sewage. Without clean water, people face diseases, malnutrition, and daily hardship. Imagine a family living in a village where the nearest safe water source is miles away. The adults or children spend hours each day walking to collect water in containers. The water they bring home may still need boiling or filtering, but even that may not remove all harmful substances. This time spent fetching water takes away from school, work, or rest. It traps families in cycles of poverty. In urban slums, water infrastructure may exist but is unreliable. Pipes may leak or break. Illegal connections create risks. Water may only flow for a few hours a day, forcing people to store it in unsafe conditions. Vendors may sell water at high prices. Poor families must choose between paying for water or other necessities like food and medicine. Industrial pollution worsens the problem. Factories discharge chemicals into rivers and groundwater. Mining operations release heavy metals. Agricultural runoff adds pesticides and fertilizers. These pollutants contaminate water for communities downstream, often those with little political power. Cleanup is expensive and slow. Meanwhile, people drink and bathe in unsafe water. Private companies sometimes manage water supply. In some cases, privatization leads to higher prices and worse service. When profit is the main goal, companies may cut corners on maintenance or refuse to invest in infrastructure. Low-income communities can be cut off or face unaffordable bills. Water becomes a commodity rather than a public good. Governments also play a role. In many countries, investment in water infrastructure is low or uneven. Corruption, mismanagement, or political priorities can leave areas underserved. Conflict and displacement disrupt water systems, creating crises. In some cases, water becomes a weapon, blocked, poisoned, or controlled to exert power over populations. Access to clean water affects health directly. Waterborne diseases like cholera, dysentery, and typhoid kill hundreds of thousands annually, mostly children. Lack of water also harms hygiene, increasing the spread of infections. Women and girls often bear the burden of collecting water, facing safety risks and losing educational opportunities. The wealthiest countries have largely solved clean water access, but even there, problems exist. Aging infrastructure can lead to contamination. Flint, Michigan, is a recent example where poor decisions poisoned a city's water supply, exposing social and racial inequalities. This shows that clean water is not automatic, even in rich places. Global organizations and governments have made commitments to expand water access, like the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Progress is being made, but the pace is slow. Billions still lack reliable, safe water. The costs of building and maintaining infrastructure are high, and political will is often lacking. Climate change adds new challenges. Droughts reduce water availability. Floods contaminate supplies. Changing weather patterns disrupt traditional sources. Vulnerable communities suffer most, facing new shortages and health risks. This makes the right to water even more urgent. Recognizing clean water as a human right means treating it as a basic need, not a luxury. It requires public investment, strong regulation, and equitable policies. It means prioritizing the needs of the poorest and most marginalized. Water should be accessible, affordable, and safe for everyone. Yet, in many places, water remains a privilege reserved for those with money or influence. This reality reflects broader inequalities in wealth and power. Until that changes, billions will continue to live without the most essential resource for life. In many corporate and political hierarchies, the system often rewards people who show traits linked to narcissism and psychopathy. These traits include a lack of empathy, a strong desire for power, and a willingness to manipulate others. While these qualities can be harmful in personal relationships, they sometimes become advantages in climbing the ladder of business or politics. Narcissists tend to seek attention and admiration. They believe they are special and deserve success. In a corporate setting, this can translate to bold self-promotion, confidence, and a drive to stand out. They push their ideas aggressively and rarely admit mistakes. Their charisma can attract followers and influence decision-makers. This confidence helps them grab leadership roles, even if their skills or ethics are lacking. Psychopaths take this further. They often show a lack of guilt or remorse and can be highly manipulative. They focus on goals with single-minded determination, ignoring how their actions affect others. In politics, this might mean breaking rules, lying, or exploiting weaknesses to gain power. Psychopaths can stay calm under pressure and make tough decisions without being held back by emotions. The structure of many organizations encourages these behaviors. Hierarchies reward those who deliver results, often measured by profits, votes, or influence. Emotional intelligence and cooperation can be undervalued if they don't produce immediate gains. Ambition and ruthlessness are seen as strengths. This creates an environment where narcissists and psychopaths can thrive. Consider a corporate executive who takes credit for others' work, cuts corners to meet targets, and fires employees without concern. Their success might be praised by shareholders focused on profits. Meanwhile, employees suffer from toxic management. The executive's lack of empathy doesn't stop their rise. It may even help. In politics, leaders who manipulate public opinion, spread misinformation, or attack opponents aggressively often gain more attention and support. Their willingness to use fear or division can mobilize voters. While this may undermine democracy, it can secure elections. Emotional appeals and personal attacks can overshadow policy or honesty. This system not only rewards harmful traits, but can also punish empathy and cooperation. Leaders who show vulnerability, admit faults, or prioritize others' well-being may be seen as weak. They might be passed over for promotion or sidelined. This discourages genuine leadership and creates a culture where self-interest rules. Narcissists and psychopaths also tend to protect each other. They recognize similar traits in others and form alliances. They may cover for each other's misconduct or block critics. This network strengthens their position and makes it harder to hold them accountable. The effects ripple beyond leadership. Employees and citizens may feel powerless or demoralized. Workplace bullying, political corruption, and unethical decisions become common. Trust in institutions erodes as people see leaders acting in self-interest rather than the public good. Not everyone in power has these traits, of course. Many leaders are ethical, compassionate, and effective, but the system often makes it harder for these individuals to rise or stay in control. They face challenges in environments that reward aggression and self-promotion. Change requires recognizing how current structures shape behavior. Organizations can value empathy, transparency, and collaboration. Leadership development can focus on emotional intelligence and ethics. Hiring and promotion processes can screen for harmful traits rather than reward them. The reality is that many who reach the top do so not just because of talent or hard work, but because their personalities fit the system. The traits that hurt others can help in gaining and keeping power. Understanding this dynamic helps explain why leadership often disappoints and why change can be so difficult. People don't always act based on facts or reality. Instead, they respond to stories, narratives that make sense of the world. These stories shape beliefs, emotions, and actions. Sometimes the truth is less important than the story people believe. The story frames what is real, what matters, and what should be done. Consider a political campaign. Candidates present narratives about themselves and their opponents. One may tell a story of being a fighter for the common person. The other may paint themselves as the only defender of tradition. These stories connect with voters' fears, hopes, and identities. Facts about policies or records matter less than which story feels true. Media and social platforms amplify this effect. Stories that evoke strong emotions, fear, pride, anger, spread faster than dry facts. People share narratives that confirm their beliefs, even if those narratives aren't accurate. Over time, communities form around shared stories. These stories become part of their identity and worldview. Sometimes narratives oversimplify complex realities. A conflict between nations might be told as good versus evil, ignoring history, economics, or nuance. A health crisis may be framed as a conspiracy or miracle cure. These stories make the world easier to understand, but can distort truth and mislead action. Advertising uses narrative to sell products. A car isn't just a machine, it's freedom, status, or adventure. A phone isn't just a tool, it's connection and identity. The story makes people want the product regardless of its features or price. Marketing shapes desires through story, not just facts. In personal relationships, narratives shape how people understand each other. Two people might remember the same event very differently. The story they tell themselves about what happened affects trust, forgiveness, and conflict. The emotional truth of the story often matters more than objective facts. Narratives can unite or divide. Shared stories build communities and cultures, but conflicting stories create division and mistrust. In politics, competing narratives can make compromise difficult. Each side believes their story is the only truth. Dialogue becomes about defending narratives rather than seeking facts. Education and science aim to teach truth, but they also rely on stories. Scientific discoveries are communicated through narratives of curiosity, struggle, and insight. History is taught as a story of events and meaning. The way these stories are told affects how well they are understood and accepted. Some narratives serve power. Leaders, corporations, or media may promote stories that justify actions or protect interests. They shape public opinion by controlling the story. Challenging these narratives requires more than facts. It requires creating new stories that resonate. Understanding the power of narrative helps explain why truth alone often fails to change minds or behavior. People need stories that connect with their experience and values. Facts without narrative may be ignored or rejected. Changing the story can open the door to new understanding. This doesn't mean truth doesn't matter. Truth provides the foundation for good stories. It holds people accountable and guides effective action. But to reach people, truth must be woven into narratives that engage and inspire. The story and the truth work together. In a world flooded with information, the story that wins attention and trust shapes reality. Recognizing the power of narrative helps us be more critical consumers of information. It encourages us to seek stories that reflect truth and complexity, not just comfort or convenience. When disaster strikes, most people see tragedy, loss, and suffering. But for some, crises are opportunities to make money and gain power. Disaster capitalism is the practice of exploiting emergencies, whether natural disasters, wars, or economic collapses, to push policies and business deals that benefit a few, often at the expense of the many. After a hurricane destroys a city, companies rush in to rebuild. In theory, this helps communities recover. But in reality, contracts often go to firms with political connections, not those who best serve the affected people. Prices skyrocket. Temporary housing becomes permanent, and affordable homes vanish. Wealthy developers buy land cheaply and profit from the rebuilding, while displaced residents struggle to return. The aftermath of Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans illustrates this. Schools were closed and replaced by charter schools, often run by private companies. Public housing was demolished, and many low-income families lost their homes permanently. Contracts for cleanup and construction went to firms with ties to politicians. The disaster reshaped the city in ways that favored business interests over residents' needs. In war zones, private military companies provide security, logistics, and training. These firms profit from conflict. The longer the fighting lasts, the more money they make. Governments outsource functions to these companies, reducing oversight and accountability. The focus shifts from peace and rebuilding to maintaining contracts and profits. Economic crises open similar doors. After the 2008 financial collapse, governments bailed out large banks while ordinary people faced foreclosures and job losses. The same firms that caused the crisis emerged stronger. New rules often favored Wall Street, not Main Street. Private equity and hedge funds bought distressed assets cheaply, gaining control over housing, healthcare, and education sectors. Health emergencies, like the COVID-19 pandemic, also revealed disaster capitalism. Pharmaceutical companies rushed to develop vaccines and treatments, earning billions. While this success saved lives, access to medicines and vaccines was uneven, often prioritizing wealthy countries and companies over poorer populations. The crisis highlighted how profit motives influence who gets care. Privatization is a common strategy during disasters. Governments sell public assets or services to private firms, claiming efficiency or necessity. But privatization can reduce quality, increase costs, and limit access. Water, electricity, or healthcare may become more expensive or less reliable. The public loses control over essential services while private profits rise. Disaster capitalism relies on urgency and fear. In moments of crisis, normal rules and scrutiny weaken. Contracts are rushed. Laws are suspended. Transparency fades. This environment allows actors to push through unpopular policies or enrich themselves without challenge. People in crisis often lack the time or resources to resist. The media plays a role by focusing on immediate events and neglecting the longer-term impacts. Stories of heroism and rescue dominate, while questions about who benefits or who loses get less attention. Public outrage focuses on the disaster itself, not the business behind the recovery. Communities affected by disasters may find themselves sidelined in decision-making. Plans are made by outsiders, government officials, corporations, or consultants, who may not understand or prioritize local needs. Promises to rebuild or compensate often fall short. The disaster deepens inequalities rather than healing them. Activists and researchers expose these patterns. They document how contracts are awarded, how policies change, and who gains wealth after disasters. Their work calls for greater accountability, transparency, and community control. They push for recovery efforts that prioritize people over profits. Disaster capitalism shows how crises can be exploited beyond the immediate harm. It reveals the intersection of tragedy and economic interests. While people suffer and rebuild, others use the moment to expand their power and wealth. Understanding this helps us see disasters not only as natural or political events, but also as moments shaped by economic forces. The challenge is to create systems that resist exploitation during crises. That means stronger oversight, fairer contracts, and inclusive decision-making. It means protecting public goods and ensuring that recovery benefits those most affected. Without these safeguards, disasters will continue to serve the interests of the few, not the needs of the many. Human rights are supposed to be universal. They are meant to apply to every person simply because they are human. Yet in reality, where you are born plays a huge role in what freedoms you actually have. Your birthplace can determine your access to education, healthcare, safety, and even basic freedom of speech or movement. Take two people born in different countries. One grows up in a wealthy democracy with stable institutions, free press, and strong legal protections. The other is born in a country ruled by a dictatorship, war, or corruption. The first person can vote, criticize leaders, and access healthcare. The second risks imprisonment for speaking out, may have limited schooling, and faces constant insecurity. The rights they have on paper differ sharply from what they experience daily. Freedom of movement is one clear example. Citizens of wealthy countries can travel with few restrictions. They obtain passports easily and cross borders for work, study, or safety. But many people from poorer or conflict-ridden countries face visa barriers, long waits, or outright bans. Refugees fleeing danger may find no safe place to go, trapped by laws and borders. The right to seek asylum is often ignored or blocked. Access to education also varies widely. Some children attend well-funded schools with trained teachers and rich materials. Others go to overcrowded classrooms without textbooks or clean water. Girls in some regions may be denied schooling altogether due to cultural or legal barriers. Education is a fundamental human right, but where you are born affects whether you receive it. Healthcare shows similar inequality. In some countries, vaccines, medicines, and hospitals are available and affordable. In others, basic care is scarce or too costly. Maternal and child mortality rates reflect these differences starkly. A woman's chance of surviving childbirth depends heavily on where she lives. Diseases that are preventable or treatable in one place may be deadly elsewhere. Legal protections and justice systems differ too. Some countries have independent courts, fair trials, and rule of law. Others use the legal system to punish dissent, silence minorities, or enrich elites. Police brutality, arbitrary arrests, and torture remain common in many places. When human rights are violated, recourse and accountability depend on the strength of institutions that vary by country. Freedom of expression is another area shaped by birthplace. In many nations, journalists report without fear. In others, censorship and intimidation restrict speech. Social media and internet access may be blocked or monitored. People risk arrest for sharing opinions or organizing protests. The right to voice ideas and participate in society is unevenly protected. Economic rights are deeply tied to geography. Some countries provide social safety nets, minimum wages, and worker protections. Others have weak labor laws, exploitation, and extreme poverty. Jobs may be scarce, wages low, and working conditions dangerous. Economic security and dignity remain out of reach for many, limiting their ability to live freely. Women's rights also depend heavily on location. In some countries, women can vote, work, and own property. In others, laws restrict marriage, education, or movement. Gender-based violence is often underreported and unpunished. Women's autonomy and safety vary widely based on cultural, legal, and social factors tied to their birthplace. Minority and indigenous rights face similar challenges. Groups marginalized by race, ethnicity, religion, or language often experience discrimination or exclusion. In some countries, minorities have political representation and protections. In others, they face persecution, land theft, or forced assimilation. Their ability to live freely with their identity depends on where they live. Human rights treaties exist, and many governments have signed them. But enforcement is uneven. International organizations can pressure states, but sovereignty and politics limit intervention. Countries with power and wealth can shield themselves from accountability. Those without often suffer violations without recourse. Migration highlights these disparities. People move to seek better rights and opportunities, but barriers are high. Wealthy countries control borders tightly, often rejecting asylum seekers or migrant workers. Those who do arrive face discrimination and precarious status. The right to move freely is unevenly applied worldwide. The internet promised to equalize information and voice, but digital divides persist. Access to technology, censorship, and surveillance mean that digital rights are not equally shared. Some can participate fully in online life, while others remain disconnected or controlled. understanding that human rights are not equally distributed means recognizing the role of power, history, and economics. It calls for more than words. It demands action to build systems that protect rights for all, regardless of birthplace. It means challenging the barriers that limit freedom and opportunity based on where someone is born. This reality shapes global inequality, conflict, and migration. It influences how people live and die, how societies develop, and how justice is served. Birthplace remains a powerful factor in the human experience, affecting the rights and freedoms that many believe should be universal. Tech platforms like social media sites and search engines say they moderate content to keep users safe and maintain community standards. But moderation is not always neutral. Censorship often hides behind rules that seem fair but are applied unevenly, based on the platform's interests, values, or pressures. This selective silencing shapes what people see, say, and believe online. Imagine a social media company that removes posts flagged as misinformation. On the surface, this sounds responsible, stopping false information from spreading. But the decision about what counts as misinformation isn't simple. Platforms rely on internal teams, external fact-checkers, and algorithms to judge content. These systems reflect certain political, cultural, or commercial biases. Some viewpoints are labeled false or harmful, while others escape scrutiny. The line between moderation and censorship blurs. Moderation policies often favor mainstream voices and advertisers. Content that challenges dominant narratives or criticizes powerful companies may be removed or demoted. Users who speak out against platform policies or corporate behavior risk suspension. Meanwhile, content that supports the platform's business interests or aligns with popular opinion is allowed to flourish. This creates an uneven playing field. Algorithms play a key role in censorship by moderation. They decide what content appears in feeds, search results, or recommendations. Algorithms reward engagement, not truth or fairness. Content that provokes strong emotions, anger, fear, excitement, spreads more widely. Moderation tools can remove certain posts, but others that stir controversy may be promoted. This selective visibility shapes public discourse. Some content creators report shadow banning, where their posts become invisible to others without notification. They may not know why or how to fix it. This quiet censorship limits voices without public accountability. Users learn to self-censor or change their tone to avoid penalties. This chilling effect narrows the range of discussion. Governments influence platform moderation. In some countries, platforms comply with requests to remove content that challenges authority or exposes corruption. These demands are framed as legal or cultural requirements. Platforms face pressure to balance free expression with compliance. The result is content filtered through political lenses, sometimes supporting censorship disguised as moderation. Commercial interests also shape moderation. Platforms depend on advertisers who prefer safe, non-controversial environments. Content that could upset advertisers, such as political protests, social movements, or controversial art, may be restricted. This priority affects what users see and share. Moderation becomes a tool to protect profits as much as community standards. Moderation policies are often vague and changing. Users may not understand what is allowed or banned. Appeals processes can be slow, opaque, or ineffective. This unpredictability creates frustration and distrust. People who rely on platforms for news, community, or business face uncertainty about their speech and reach. Content that challenges social norms or powerful groups may be removed more frequently. Marginalized voices, activists, and whistleblowers report higher rates of censorship. This uneven enforcement weakens diversity of thought and reinforces existing power structures. Moderation becomes a barrier to social change. Some platforms have introduced transparency reports and oversight boards. These efforts aim to explain decisions and include public input. But these measures have limits. They do not always address the deeper issues of bias, commercial pressure, or political influence. The balance between safety and free expression remains difficult to achieve. Users often must navigate complex roles while expressing opinions, sharing information, or creating art. They face risks of removal, harassment, or exclusion. The threat of censorship shapes behavior and limits open dialogue. Moderation policies, while necessary, can become tools of control when applied selectively. Understanding that censorship can hide behind moderation helps users critically assess what they see online. It encourages questioning who decides what is acceptable and why. Recognizing these dynamics is key to defending free expression and fostering diverse, open communities in digital spaces. In the end, tech platforms do more than connect people. They shape information, influence opinions, and control speech. Moderation is not neutral. It reflects interests and power. This reality matters for anyone who values the freedom to speak, hear, and engage online. Most people want change. They see unfairness, inequality, and problems that need fixing. But despite frustration, large-scale rebellion or revolution rarely happens. One major reason is exhaustion. Overwork, stress, and constant struggle to survive leave people too tired to organize or fight back. Many work long hours just to make ends meet. Jobs often don't pay enough for a comfortable life. People juggle multiple gigs, shift work, or irregular hours. After work, there's little energy left for activism or protest. When basic needs consume most time and strength, the idea of rebellion feels distant or impossible. Take a single parent working 2 jobs. Their day starts early and ends late. They face childcare, housework, bills, and exhaustion. They may want to join a movement, attend meetings, or speak out, but simply lack the time and energy. Survival becomes the priority. Fighting the system feels like a luxury they can't afford. Stress and anxiety add to the burden. Financial insecurity, health worries, and social pressures weigh heavily. Living in constant survival mode affects mental health and motivation. People may feel hopeless or resigned. The idea of challenging the status quo seems overwhelming when daily life already feels like a battle. Modern technology also plays a role. Social media offers a way to express frustration or find community, but it can also drain attention and energy. Endless news cycles, online arguments, and distractions fill time that might be used for action. The constant flow of information can create fatigue rather than empowerment. Consumer culture encourages distraction. Entertainment, shopping, and consumption offer temporary relief from stress. These activities can numb dissatisfaction, but also divert energy away from organizing or resistance. The system benefits from this cycle. People stay busy and distracted, less likely to challenge existing power structures. Workplaces and governments often discourage collective action. Anti-union policies, surveillance, and legal barriers make organizing difficult. Fear of job loss or retaliation silences dissent. The risk of speaking out can feel too high when people already face economic vulnerability. Community support systems may be weak or fragmented. Without strong networks, individuals feel isolated. Rebellion requires connection, trust, and coordination, which are hard to build when people are spread thin. Isolation deepens fatigue and discourages collective action. Historical revolutions often followed moments when people could pause, reflect, and organize. After wars, economic crashes, or social upheaval. In stable yet unequal societies, constant busyness leaves little space for such moments. The pressure to keep working and surviving keeps the status quo intact. Education and media sometimes promote individual success stories, implying that hard work leads to advancement. This narrative can discourage collective action by focusing on personal responsibility. People may blame themselves rather than question systems. That mindset adds to the fatigue and resignation. The consequences of rebellion can be severe: arrests, violence, economic retaliation. The risks deter many. When people are already stretched thin, fear of additional hardship suppresses resistance. Stability, even if unfair, becomes preferable to uncertainty and danger. Some communities and movements find ways to resist despite fatigue. Mutual aid groups, worker cooperatives, and grassroots campaigns build slowly. They create support that reduces individual burdens and offers hope. But these efforts require time, energy, and resources that remain scarce for most. Understanding that most people are too tired to rebel highlights the role of systemic exhaustion in maintaining inequality. It's not just about ideas or willpower. It's about the physical and mental toll of daily survival. Change requires addressing this exhaustion, creating space for rest, connection, and collective strength. Recognizing fatigue as a barrier helps explain why frustration doesn't always lead to action. It shifts focus from blaming individuals to understanding broader social and economic pressures. Building movements means supporting people's well-being, not just their outrage. In the end, the system thrives not only on control, but on weariness. When people are too tired to fight, power goes unchallenged. Rebellion demands more than anger. It demands energy, hope, and support. Without those, most remain locked in survival, unable to change the world around them. History is often told by those who win. The stories we learn are shaped by the victors, who have the power to decide what is remembered and what is forgotten. This means many crimes, injustices, and uncomfortable truths get erased or softened to protect reputations and justify actions. When empires expand, they tell tales of discovery and progress. The violence, theft, and displacement of indigenous peoples are often left out or minimized. Instead of focusing on conquest and exploitation, history books highlight heroes and pioneers. The darker sides are buried or turned into legends of civilization. Take colonization. Many countries teach about explorers and settlers with pride, celebrating their bravery, but they often omit how those same people enslaved, killed, or displaced millions. The suffering of native populations is hidden behind stories of growth and development. The winners clean up their crimes to keep their legacy positive. Wars are told as fights for freedom, justice, or defense. The brutality, war crimes, and civilian suffering may be downplayed. For example, textbooks might praise a nation's military strategy while ignoring atrocities committed against prisoners or civilians. The enemy is demonized, while one's own side is painted in a better light. Political leaders are often portrayed as visionaries or heroes. Their failures, corruption, or repression get glossed over. The narrative focuses on their achievements or the stability they brought. Opponents and victims become nameless or villains. This selective memory shapes how future generations understand power and governance. Slavery and racism have been sanitized in many histories. The economic and social systems built on forced labor and discrimination are not always fully acknowledged. Textbooks might mention slavery briefly, without exploring its ongoing impact or the violence involved. The legacy of inequality is often ignored or blamed on cultural differences. Social movements are sometimes erased or misrepresented. Struggles for rights and justice are shortened to simplified stories that fit the dominant narrative. Activists may be labeled as troublemakers or radicals. Their achievements are downplayed or attributed to others. This undermines the history of resistance and change. Economic exploitation rarely features fully in historical accounts. The ways powerful groups profited from workers, colonies, or resources often go unmentioned. Stories focus on innovation and progress, ignoring how wealth was accumulated through harm or inequality. This creates a false picture of fair and natural development. Education plays a major role in shaping sanitized narratives. Curriculum decisions, textbooks, and teacher training influence what is taught. Governments may control content to promote national pride or social cohesion. This control limits critical examination of history and discourages questioning dominant stories. Media and popular culture reinforce sanitized versions. Films, novels, and documentaries often repeat simplified or heroic stories. They entertain and inspire, but rarely challenge the official versions. This shapes public understanding and identity, making it harder to accept complex or uncomfortable truths. New research and voices challenge sanitized histories. Scholars, activists, and communities uncover hidden stories, oral histories, and documents. They highlight the perspectives of the oppressed, marginalized, and defeated. This work expands our understanding and forces societies to confront their past honestly. Acknowledging the full history, including crimes and injustices, is difficult. It challenges national pride and identity. It raises questions about reparations, responsibility, and reconciliation. But without this honesty, history remains a tool for power, not learning. Understanding that historical narratives are sanitized helps explain why some groups feel excluded or misunderstood. It reveals how history shapes current inequalities and conflicts. It encourages critical thinking about the stories we inherit and share. History is not just about the past, it's about who controls memory and meaning. The winners write the story, but that story is never complete. Listening to all voices, especially those erased or silenced, is essential for a fuller, truer picture of our shared past. The internet feels like a vast open space where anyone can share ideas, find information, and connect with others. It seems free and limitless, but in reality, much of what you see online is carefully filtered and controlled by algorithms designed by tech companies. These algorithms decide what content appears in your feeds, search results, and recommendations, shaping your exposure to ideas and information more than most people realize. When you log into a social media site or use a search engine, you don't see every post or link available. Instead, algorithms sort through millions of pieces of content to decide what might interest you the most. They analyze your past behavior, what you click, like, share, or spend time on, and use that data to predict what will keep you engaged. The goal is not to show you the truth or the full picture, but to keep you scrolling longer and interacting more. This system has advantages. It can help you find relevant news, connect with friends, or discover new interests. But it also means your online experience is personalized in a way that limits exposure to diverse viewpoints. You might see mostly content that aligns with your existing beliefs and interests, creating an echo chamber where your views are reinforced rather than challenged. For example, if you frequently read articles about a particular political opinion, the algorithm will show you more of the same. It may hide or downrank opposing views, making it less likely you'll encounter different perspectives. Over time, this narrows your understanding of complex issues and deepens divisions between groups. Algorithms also prioritize content that generates strong reactions: anger, fear, excitement, or surprise. These emotions drive engagement, which means posts that provoke outrage or controversy often spread faster than calm, thoughtful discussion. As a result, sensational or misleading content can dominate feeds, even if it's inaccurate or harmful. This filtering isn't neutral. Tech companies design algorithms with business goals in mind. Their priority is to maximize user attention and ad revenue, not to provide a balanced or accurate information environment. This commercial pressure shapes the kind of content that thrives online. Search engines similarly control access to information. When you type a query, the order of results influences what you read first and what you ignore. Algorithms decide which websites are most relevant or trustworthy, but the criteria are complex and not transparent. Paid advertisements, SEO tactics, and content partnerships all affect rankings. This means that popular or well-funded sources often outrank smaller, independent voices. Content moderation adds another layer of control. Platforms remove posts that violate rules, such as hate speech, misinformation, or harassment. While moderation is necessary to keep communities safe, it also shapes what is allowed to be seen. Decisions about moderation are made by humans and algorithms, both of which bring biases and inconsistencies. Some groups may be unfairly targeted or censored, while others avoid consequences. Shadow banning is one example of subtle control. Users may find their posts hidden or reach limited without being told why. This quiet censorship limits certain voices without public accountability. Users may self-censor out of fear, further narrowing discourse. The concentration of internet power in a few large companies amplifies these effects. These companies control the platforms where most people spend time online. Their policies, design choices, and business interests shape the digital public square. Alternative platforms exist, but often lack reach or funding to compete effectively. Advertisers influence what content gets promoted. Brands prefer safe, non-controversial environments. Platforms remove or demote content that might upset advertisers. This economic pressure limits political or social discussion that challenges the status quo. Data collection fuels the system. Every click, view, and interaction is tracked and analyzed. This data feeds algorithms and builds detailed profiles used for targeted advertising. The tracking is often invisible, and privacy controls are complex. This surveillance economy shapes online experiences and influences behavior. Users can take steps to broaden their exposure, seeking diverse sources, using multiple platforms, and questioning recommendations. But algorithms are designed to keep users within familiar content loops. Breaking out requires conscious effort and critical thinking. The internet's structure also affects who participates. Algorithmic filtering may prioritize content from popular or professional creators, limiting grassroots voices. This shapes whose stories are heard and whose are marginalized. In emergencies or political crises, control over online information becomes even more important. Governments or companies may block content, throttle connections, or spread propaganda. Algorithms can be weaponized to amplify certain narratives or silence dissent. Understanding that the internet is not as free as it seems helps users navigate the digital world more carefully. It encourages questioning the sources, recognizing manipulation, and seeking out fuller pictures. The freedom to access information and ideas depends on the design and control behind the scenes. The internet holds great promise for connection and knowledge, but its reality is shaped by powerful algorithms that control exposure and influence. Recognizing this helps us see beyond the surface and engage with the digital world more thoughtfully. Mass surveillance is no longer a concept from spy novels or dystopian films. It has become a reality that affects nearly everyone, everywhere. Governments and corporations collect and analyze vast amounts of data on individuals, tracking movements, communications, and behaviors on a global scale. This surveillance is expanding rapidly, changing how privacy and freedom function in modern society. Governments use surveillance for a variety of purposes. They monitor communications to prevent crime and terrorism. They collect data on citizens' phone calls, emails, social media posts, and internet browsing. Surveillance cameras and facial recognition technology watch public spaces. The goal is often described as keeping people safe. But this constant monitoring raises questions about rights, abuses, and who controls the information. Take the example of phone metadata collection. Intelligence agencies can record who calls whom, when and where. They may not listen to the content, but patterns reveal relationships, habits, and movements. With enough data, they can map social networks and predict behavior. This information can be used not only against criminals, but also to monitor activists, journalists, or political opponents. Corporations play a major role in surveillance. Tech companies track users across devices and platforms, gathering information to target ads and shape content. Smartphones record location, app usage, and contacts. Websites monitor clicks, time spent, and searches. Even smart home devices listen and observe daily life. This data builds detailed profiles sold to advertisers, data brokers, and sometimes governments. The line between government and corporate surveillance blurs. Governments often request or demand data from companies. Companies may share information voluntarily or under legal pressure. Programs exist where agencies tap into company servers or intercept data flows. This cooperation creates a surveillance ecosystem where privacy is fragile. Facial recognition technology illustrates surveillance's reach. Cameras in airports, streets, and stores scan faces and compare them to databases. This allows identification and tracking without consent or knowledge. In some countries, this technology is used to monitor minority groups, suppress protests, or control populations. The technology spreads globally, often without clear regulations or oversight. Social media platforms contribute to mass surveillance. Users share personal information, locations, opinions, and networks publicly or privately. Algorithms analyze this data to recommend content or ads, but also create records that governments or other actors can access. The scale of data shared voluntarily adds to surveillance capacity. Mass surveillance extends beyond urban centers. Satellites, drones, and sensors monitor borders, forests, oceans, and more. Governments track migration, resource use, and environmental changes. These tools can support public good, but also enable control and repression. The growth of 5G and the Internet of Things (IoT) increases surveillance potential. Connected devices in homes, cars, and workplaces collect continuous streams of data. This creates new ways to monitor health, behavior, and productivity. It also raises risks of hacking and misuse. Surveillance affects daily behavior. People may self-censor speech, avoid certain places or topics, and feel watched. This chilling effect limits freedom and expression. Awareness of surveillance changes how people interact online and offline. Legal frameworks struggle to keep up. Many countries lack clear laws protecting privacy or regulating surveillance technology. Courts and lawmakers face challenges balancing security, innovation, and rights. Some governments pass laws expanding surveillance powers, often in secret or without public debate. Whistleblowers have revealed much about mass surveillance programs. Their disclosures show how agencies collect data on ordinary people, often without suspicion or oversight. These revelations sparked debates about legality, ethics, and transparency, but led to limited reforms. Surveillance technology also raises ethical questions. Who decides what data is collected and how it's used? How are errors handled? Can people opt out or control their information? These questions remain unanswered in many places. Mass surveillance intersects with inequality. Marginalized groups are often targeted more heavily. Activists, journalists, and dissidents face greater scrutiny. Surveillance can reinforce social control and deepen power imbalances. The global nature of surveillance complicates resistance. Data flows across borders, and companies operate internationally. Laws and protections vary widely. This creates gaps exploited by governments or corporations seeking to expand monitoring. Efforts to resist mass surveillance include encryption, privacy tools, and advocacy. Technologies like VPNs, secure messaging apps, and anonymity networks help protect users. Activists push for stronger laws and transparency, but surveillance systems are powerful and constantly evolving. Mass surveillance is a defining feature of the modern world. It promises security and convenience, but at the cost of privacy and freedom. Understanding its scope, actors, and impact is crucial for anyone living in the digital age. It challenges ideas about what freedom means and how society balances safety with individual rights. Fame feels like a sudden spark, one video, one song, one moment that propels someone into the spotlight. It looks like a natural rise, earned by talent or luck, but the truth is more complex. Fame today often comes not from pure talent or chance, but from careful manipulation, strategy, and industry influence. Virality is manufactured, shaped by unseen forces behind the scenes. The internet and social media seem to democratize fame. Anyone can post content and potentially reach millions, but the reality is that getting noticed is incredibly difficult without support. Algorithms control what content gets shown. Marketing teams plan campaigns. Influencers and celebrities use networks and resources that new creators lack. The idea of going viral by chance is rare. Take a viral video. It may look spontaneous, a funny clip, a heartfelt moment, or a surprising event. But behind the scenes, there may be teams working to boost views. They share the video with influencers, buy ads to promote it, and optimize the content to perform well with algorithms. They use timing, hashtags, and formats designed to capture attention quickly. Platforms reward engagement, likes, shares, comments, watch time. Content creators and marketers study this closely. They craft posts to trigger emotional responses, humor, outrage, amazement. This calculated approach increases chances of virality. The most viral content is rarely accidental. It's engineered to spread. Talent remains important, but it's only one factor. Creators who succeed often combine skill with marketing savvy, connections, and persistence. Some use teams to handle production, promotion, and audience engagement. They analyze data to refine their work. Fame becomes a product, built and managed. Manipulation also appears in the form of collaborations and endorsements. New creators collaborate with established influencers to gain exposure. Brands sponsor content to reach wider audiences. These partnerships are carefully planned and negotiated, not random encounters. They create networks of influence that boost visibility. Social media platforms themselves play a role. They promote certain creators through featured sections, recommended videos, or trending topics. These decisions can be influenced by relationships, advertising deals, or policy goals. Some creators gain access to these boosts through negotiations or sponsorships. This gives them a significant advantage over others. Fake engagement is another tactic. Buying likes, followers, or views creates an illusion of popularity. This can trick algorithms into further promoting content. It also attracts real followers who trust popularity as a sign of quality. Fake engagement is risky and can lead to penalties, but it's widespread and part of the fame-building toolkit. The pressure to produce viral content shapes creativity. Creators may prioritize what's trendy or sensational over what feels authentic or innovative. The chase for views can lead to repetitive or shallow content designed for quick consumption. This affects the culture of creation and audience expectations. Manipulation extends to public relations and media coverage. Traditional media outlets sometimes pick up stories from social media, amplifying certain creators. PR teams pitch stories, manage interviews, and shape public image. Fame becomes a coordinated campaign rather than a grassroots phenomenon. The mental toll on creators can be high. Constantly chasing virality means working under pressure to perform, conform, and engage. The boundary between genuine expression and marketing blurs. Creators face scrutiny, backlash, and the risk of being forgotten quickly if they don't maintain visibility. Audiences often don't see this manipulation. They believe fame is merit-based and organic. This belief shapes how people view success and talent. It can lead to disappointment or frustration when they don't achieve similar recognition despite effort. It also fuels myths about overnight success. Understanding that fame is often manufactured helps demystify the process. It encourages more realistic expectations about success and creativity. It highlights the role of systems, economics, and strategy in shaping who gains attention. Some creators do break through with raw talent and authenticity alone, but they are exceptions rather than the rule. Most rely on a mix of factors: skill, networking, marketing, timing, to build and sustain fame. The manufactured nature of fame reflects broader trends in media and culture. Attention is a currency, and those who control its flow hold power. Fame is less about who is best and more about who is best positioned to be seen. This reality calls for critical consumption of media. Audiences benefit from questioning how fame is built, recognizing manipulation, and supporting diverse voices beyond the viral mainstream. It also calls for creators to balance strategy with integrity. Fame today is a complex product shaped by forces beyond individual talent. Recognizing this helps us understand the media landscape and our own relationship with success and attention. Earth's ecosystems are under serious threat. Species are disappearing at a rate much faster than normal, and the variety of life that supports healthy environments is shrinking. This loss of biodiversity is accelerating, and it threatens the balance that humans and countless other organisms depend on to survive. Biodiversity means the variety of life: plants, animals, fungi, and microbes. Each species plays a role in its ecosystem, creating a web of connections. When one species disappears, it affects others. For example, bees pollinate plants that produce fruits and seeds. If bees decline, plants suffer, and so do animals that eat those plants. The effects ripple through food chains and habitats. Humans have caused much of the damage. Habitat destruction is a leading cause. Forests are cut down for agriculture, cities, and industry. Wetlands are drained. Oceans are overfished and polluted. When habitats shrink or vanish, species lose the places they need to live, feed, and reproduce. Some cannot adapt quickly enough and face extinction. Pollution adds to the problem. Chemicals from factories, farms, and cities contaminate air, soil, and water. Plastics break down into tiny particles that enter food chains. Toxic substances harm wildlife and disrupt reproductive systems. Pollution creates dead zones in oceans where life struggles to survive. Climate change worsens these threats. Rising temperatures, changing rainfall, and extreme weather alter ecosystems. Some species migrate to cooler areas or higher altitudes, but not all can move fast enough or find suitable habitats. Coral reefs bleach and die in warmer waters, losing entire underwater ecosystems. Changes in timing, for example when plants bloom or insects hatch, can break the synchrony needed for species to survive. Overexploitation is another factor. Hunting, fishing, and gathering at unsustainable levels deplete populations. Some species are targeted for food, medicine, or trade. Illegal wildlife trafficking drives animals like elephants, rhinos, and pangolins toward extinction. Overharvesting fish reduces populations faster than they can reproduce, collapsing fisheries. Invasive species disrupt ecosystems. When humans introduce plants, animals, or microbes to new areas, they can outcompete native species for resources. This often leads to declines or extinctions of local species. Invasive species alter habitats and food webs, further reducing biodiversity. The consequences of ecosystem collapse are serious for humans. Healthy ecosystems provide clean air and water, fertile soil, pollination, climate regulation, and disease control. Losing biodiversity weakens these services, threatening food security, health, and livelihoods. For example, without pollinators, many crops would fail or produce less. This impacts farmers and food prices globally. Forests that absorb carbon help slow climate change. When forests shrink, carbon release accelerates warming. Wetlands filter water and protect against floods. Their loss increases risks to communities. Some species are indicators of ecosystem health. Amphibians, for example, are sensitive to environmental changes. Their decline signals broader problems that may eventually affect humans. Protecting these species means safeguarding entire ecosystems. Efforts to address biodiversity loss include protected areas, habitat restoration, and sustainable resource management. National parks and reserves safeguard habitats from destruction. Reforestation projects rebuild forests. Sustainable fishing practices aim to balance harvest with conservation. International agreements like the Convention on Biological Diversity set goals to conserve species and habitats. However, enforcement and funding remain challenges. Many countries struggle to balance development with conservation needs. Local and indigenous communities play crucial roles in protecting ecosystems. Their traditional knowledge and stewardship often maintain biodiversity effectively. Supporting these communities and respecting their rights is key to conservation success. Technology helps monitor biodiversity through satellites, drones, and sensors. Scientists track species populations and habitat changes more accurately. This data informs policy and conservation efforts, but technology alone cannot solve the problem without political will and public support. Consumer choices also matter. Demand for products like palm oil, soy, and timber drives deforestation. Sustainable sourcing and reducing waste can lessen pressure on ecosystems. Public awareness and education encourage responsible behaviors that support biodiversity. Restoring ecosystems takes time and patience. Some species may recover quickly, while others need decades or longer. Preventing further damage remains critical because lost species cannot be brought back. The Earth's web of life is fragile and complex. Understanding the accelerating mass extinction and biodiversity loss helps explain why the Earth's ecosystems are near collapse. It shows the urgent need for action at every level, from governments and businesses to individuals and communities. The future depends on recognizing the value of biodiversity and the role it plays in sustaining life. Protecting ecosystems is not just an environmental issue, it's essential for human survival and well-being. Many technologies we use every day started as military projects. Innovations like GPS, the internet, and drones were first developed for defense purposes before becoming part of civilian life. Military funding and research have played a major role in driving technological progress, often shaping the direction and pace of innovation. Take the Global Positioning System, or GPS. It's now standard in smartphones, cars, and navigation apps. But GPS began as a military project in the 1970s. The U.S. Department of Defense developed it to provide accurate location data for missiles, ships, and aircraft. The system allowed the military to track and guide forces precisely. Only later was the technology opened for civilian use, transforming how people navigate and manage logistics worldwide. The internet itself has military roots. In the late 1960s, the U.S. Department of Defense funded ARPANET, a network designed to connect research centers and ensure communication during wartime disruptions. The goal was to create a resilient system that could survive attacks. Over time, ARPANET grew and evolved, eventually becoming the global internet we rely on today. Its military origins shaped the focus on decentralization and robustness. Drones are another example. Initially developed for surveillance, target practice, and combat missions, unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, have expanded into civilian roles like photography, agriculture, and delivery. Military research created the basic technology and control systems that enabled drones to fly remotely and perform complex tasks. Today's commercial drones owe much to those early defense efforts. Military funding often accelerates innovation because governments invest large sums to solve urgent problems. Defense agencies have strong incentives to develop cutting-edge technology, and they provide steady resources to researchers and companies. This support creates environments where experimentation and rapid development can happen, even if the technology is initially classified or limited to the military. In many cases, military research focuses on technologies with dual uses, both for defense and civilian applications. Material science, computing, communications, and robotics are areas where military needs have driven breakthroughs that later find everyday uses. For example, advances in computer chips, satellite communications, and sensors all benefited from defense funding. However, the military's priorities shape the kinds of innovations that get developed. Technologies that enhance weapons, surveillance, or command and control tend to receive more attention. Civilian needs may come second or be overlooked unless they align with military goals. This can skew research away from areas like public health, education, or environmental protection. The transition from military to civilian use is not automatic. Once developed, technologies may be classified or restricted, delaying public access. Governments and companies must work to adapt and commercialize these technologies. This process can take years or decades and involves overcoming technical, legal, and economic challenges. Companies involved in military contracts often gain expertise and resources that help them enter commercial markets. Some firms specialize in defense technologies but branch out to consumer products. The expertise gained through military projects becomes an asset in developing new applications. Military-funded innovations sometimes raise ethical questions. Technologies designed for war and control can have negative consequences. Surveillance tools, drones used in combat, and cyber weapons all have civilian impacts. The spread of military technology into civilian life brings concerns about privacy, security, and the militarization of society. At the same time, military funding has enabled some of the most important technological leaps in recent history. Without this investment, technologies wouldn't be data-driven. Many devices and systems might not exist or would have developed more slowly. The internet alone revolutionized communication, commerce, and culture worldwide. Understanding the military's role in innovation helps explain how many technologies emerge and spread. It reveals the connection between defense priorities and technological progress. It also shows that advances often come from government support, not just private enterprise or market demand. This reality encourages reflection on how society funds and directs research. Balancing military needs with civilian benefits is important. Expanding investment in areas like health, energy, and education can diversify innovation and address broader challenges. Innovation is complex and influenced by many forces. Military funding is a powerful driver, but not the only one. Recognizing its role helps us better understand how technology shapes our world and how future progress might be guided. We live in a world where convenience rules. With a few clicks, we can order groceries, clothes, or gadgets delivered to our doorsteps in hours or even minutes. Apps promise instant access to food, transportation, and entertainment. This ease feels like progress. But behind every quick delivery and one-click purchase lies a complex web of labor, environmental impact, and hidden costs that we often ignore. Take online shopping. It's easy to browse, compare, and buy without leaving home. The checkout process is fast, and shipping options tempt us with same-day or next-day delivery. But fulfilling these orders requires massive infrastructure: warehouses, trucks, planes, and workers who pack and ship items quickly. The rush to meet customer expectations strains both people and the planet. Warehouse workers often face demanding conditions. They work long hours, standing, scanning, and moving goods with speed and precision. Mistakes can lead to penalties. Breaks are short. Injuries are common. These jobs may pay minimum wage or offer little security. Behind the convenience of a delivered package is labor that is often invisible and undervalued. Transportation plays a major role in emissions. Delivery trucks clog city streets, contributing to air pollution and traffic congestion. Expedited shipping may involve planes, which emit more greenhouse gases per mile than other forms of transport. The carbon footprint of getting a product from factory to warehouse to customer's door adds up quickly, especially when orders are frequent and returns are common. Packaging is another hidden cost. To protect goods during shipping, companies use layers of plastic, cardboard, and fillers. Many packages are single-use and discarded immediately. The waste contributes to landfill overflow and pollution. Recycling rates vary, and much packaging ends up in oceans or natural areas, harming wildlife. Convenience also encourages overconsumption. The ease of ordering reduces friction, leading to impulse buys and excess purchases. People may order multiple sizes or versions of a product, returning some. Returns add to transportation emissions and waste, as returned items are often discarded or resold at lower value. Food delivery apps offer a clear example of convenience's cost. Customers get meals from restaurants without leaving home, but delivery workers face low pay, long hours, and pressure to deliver quickly. The environmental impact includes packaging waste and emissions from delivery vehicles. The rise of ghost kitchens, restaurants designed only for delivery, changes urban food landscapes and employment patterns. Streaming services show how convenience shapes consumption habits. Instant access to movies and shows means people watch more content than before, increasing data usage. Data centers and networks consume large amounts of electricity, often powered by fossil fuels. This hidden energy use supports the convenience of endless entertainment on demand. Smart home devices and voice assistants add convenience, but collect vast amounts of data. These devices monitor daily routines and preferences, raising privacy concerns. The production and disposal of electronic devices also have environmental and social impacts, from mining rare minerals to e-waste management. The culture of convenience extends beyond products to services and communication. Instant messaging, social media, and online shopping shorten attention spans and encourage constant activity. The pressure to be always available or to get things done quickly can increase stress and reduce reflection. Businesses compete fiercely to offer faster, easier services. Free shipping thresholds, one-click payments, and subscription models lock consumers into cycles of continuous spending. These incentives reduce consumer choice and increase reliance on platforms that prioritize speed over sustainability or fairness. Governments and planners often struggle to manage the effects of convenience-driven growth. Urban areas face increased traffic, pollution, and waste. Infrastructure is strained to support delivery fleets and packaging disposal. Regulations may lag behind technological and market changes, leaving negative impacts unchecked. Consumers bear many costs indirectly. They may pay higher prices for convenience or face health impacts from pollution and stress. Workers in low-wage, high-pressure jobs often receive little of the economic benefit. The environment suffers from resource extraction, emissions, and waste linked to rapid consumption cycles. Changing this dynamic requires awareness and choices. Reducing impulsive buying, consolidating orders, choosing slower shipping, and supporting local businesses can lessen impact. Reusing and recycling packaging, demanding fair labor practices, and advocating for sustainable policies also matter. Some companies and communities experiment with alternatives. Shared delivery lockers, electric vehicles, biodegradable packaging, and fair wage initiatives aim to balance convenience with responsibility. These efforts show that convenience need not come at any cost, but they require commitment and systemic change. Ultimately, our addiction to convenience shapes modern life in profound ways. It offers comfort and efficiency, but hides complex consequences. Recognizing the labor, emissions, and waste behind instant access helps us make more informed decisions about how we live, consume, and relate to the world around us.